Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
For the Panthers, Pickett, a very good runner. Don't sleep on those legs. Oh, he faked the slide. Sauce time. Pickett. Did that work? Touchdown, Pitt.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here he goes.
Jamba Joshua. The exclamation point.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Here Pollard. Over to Pollard. Turn it on. Carlson. He gets past him. Look at Pollard taking it for the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
If you were a part of a conference in college football yesterday and you're a fan of a team, an alum, a donor, a player, or a coach, you're still a part of it. I know everyone wants new news, but there's nothing other than the fact that there is some simmering when it comes to what might happen with the Pac-12 and whatever's left with them, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, and what the Big 12 may do. Mack Rhoades, Baylor's Director of Athletics, will join us today at 4:30, as Brian Howell reported again this week, and Jason Scheer, who covers Arizona, reported as well. Colorado's meeting again today, and maybe there are some meetings, but they just aren't public. And so that's going on pretty much today around college football. The ACC Media Days began today. I'll have some of the comments from Jim Phillips, their commissioner. Another conference that sometimes feels attacked, because anyone who's not the Big Ten and the SEC pretty much has been told you're on a clothesline and the wind is blowing strong. So, all right, ACC Media Days. Here's a couple of notes, guys, and you follow up as you want with Jim Phillips. This is Alexis Cubit, who covered Clemson, now covers Louisville, who used to work with us as an intern out of Baylor. We are not the professional ranks. This is not the NFL or NBA light. This is not, or should not be, a winner-take-all structure.
Does somebody want to inform the other half of college football and a lot of the networks, because that's the exact opposite message of what they're sending right now?
Does somebody want to tell Jim Phillips that he got suckered by the Big Ten to do their bidding last year and created that situation?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
because that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he would like that to be true. I don't know how true that is anymore. I think there are some schools that operate with that train of thought and would like to continue operating with that train of thought, and then there's a whole bunch of others saying, no, we are going to be basically professional football and either get on board if we allow you on board, or, you know, eat our dust, basically. So it's interesting to hear that. And, yeah, obviously there's already a split opinion on that comment right there.
All right. Also, one of the things he mentioned, and this all makes sense. By the way, him saying that doesn't mean he's wrong. doesn't mean, but it is on, like, you're clinging on with your fingernails if you're not the Big Ten and or the SEC. And then the ACC picked Pac-12 and Big 12 are still around, and they still have some strength. It's just a matter of how this all works out. Phillips, on conference revenue gaps, over the last 18 months, it's been my primary focus. Yes, it is. It's even the primary focus of other commissioners, even of the two conferences right now that feel damn good about themselves, the Big Ten and the SEC.
Now, we'll talk about this in the top 5, but for those of you who don't make it that far in the show, do you know what can help with that revenue gap other than renegotiating the grant of rights and all those things and television deals before 2036? If the ACC can be a conference that is better than just one good team and a bunch of also-rans, because for most of its history, that's what it's been in football. Whether it's been Florida State being that team or Clemson being that team, and then occasionally, they'll have a year where everybody's kind of at the same level, and somebody like Maryland before they left to the Big Ten popped up and won it, or Wake can pop up and win it, but that's not consistent. It's one team dominates the league for a long time, and then, takes over. And while I know that if you look at the SEC, you can kind of say the same thing, at least there have been some circulation in that a little bit over the years, whether it's Georgia, LSU, Alabama, winning. Florida won not too long ago. So there is some, motion in that. But the ACC's biggest problem is it's a one-team league.
Yeah, and then he did mention that he was proud to work with the Alliance. Of course, that helped the Big Ten.
I think their biggest problem is that 2036 contract. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest problem, is the fact that they are locked down for as long as they are. And, yeah, you're right about Clemson's pretty much ran that thing. But, every other league's kind of the same when you look around a little bit.
Who's run the Big Ten?
Ohio State has. Yep. The Pac-12, I'd say Oregon for the most part, although obviously Utah now has a claim to stake there after this past season. But, regularly, Oregon's been carrying that pail because USC's been down. Washington's kind of been there. They made the playoff, but that was also a few years ago at this point, and they've been kind of, irrelevant since then, quite frankly. So, yeah, I don't think that it's all that uncommon. I think the ACC would be a lot more interesting, and there would be a lot different of tones coming out of that media days if they did not have a 2036 contract hanging over their head. That's the big albatross.
Yeah, here's one from Jim Phillips. As far as the future, he was asked about the ACC's long TV deal, the grant of rights with ESPN, and he suggested today that ESPN is helping the league with the issue. Quote, they want to help the ACC. They need to help the ACC. That's from the commissioner today in Jim Phillips.
Well, that's certainly a way to look at it. You would think so. That's common sense that you've got a 13-year TV deal with somebody. You need the ratings to go up. You need things to be better in the ACC. But also, from the other side of it, if you're ESPN, why would you want to pay them more money if you don't have to?
Craig and I discussed for 20 minutes on Monday's show, back and forth. It was a fantastic discussion. In fact, I got a note about it. We both went back and forth on that. Why would ESPN do that? And then I was kind of giving the reasons, in my opinion, why they would. But going back to that, and Craig, Phillips said the ACC grant of rights, confident it will not be challenged. What history has told us about the grant of rights, people talked about Oklahoma and Texas leaving immediately. That's not the case. They'll have to wait until their grant of rights are over. Now, one deal here, they only have to wait 2 or 3 years, or 3 years, if they fill it out to 25. In the ACC, I don't see some of the schools wanting to wait 14 years if, in fact, they feel like they're being left in the dust. And so there's the difference in the term of why Texas and Oklahoma have been, for the most part, you think, pretty patient with what they are letting the clock run out at some point.
Well, yeah, they don't want 3 presidential elections to go by in the time of it where, when Texas and Oklahoma leave, it's only a couple years from now. So, yeah, you're also not talking about what would be a prodigious amount more money than if you left with 1 year left on the GOR as opposed to 13 years.
Yeah, if a baby was born today, they're going to be 13, give or take, years old by the time that grant of rights runs out. I mean, think about that. 13 freaking years. That's
might
a
have
long
3 or 4 new siblings with
time.
them too, yeah.
That's a long time, man. And so that was my whole point the other day and you started talking about, well, what if they basically you insinuated front-loading their contract or ramping up the money. My whole point was the length is what's the killer. I mean, the money's the killer too, but the length is like the real killer because you need the money to change, but the length says that it doesn't have to change for over a decade. So that's where I was coming from with why would ESPN help them? They're not going to do it out of the kindness of their heart. That was my point. They're not doing it to just boost these other programs. There would have to be something driving them to want to do that. And even then, it still makes little sense to me because, again, you've got them locked down for a certain amount of money that's very favorable to you. Your point was, well, maybe they want to prop them up because they need them more and this and that. And I get that. But if I'm Clemson and I'm North Carolina and I'm whoever else you want to throw in there, Virginia Tech or something, I don't know who would actually be candidates outside of those two, Miami, Florida State, whatever. Okay, the money's good for the next few years, but we're still locked down in this contract, and we're still not getting out of this thing. That's the whole point is the fact that you're locked down. So, yeah, boost the money with some renegotiated ESPN deal in the near term, but long term, which is what clearly the SEC's been planning, they've been looking long term. The Big Ten's been looking long term. The others have all been looking short term. And this one is actually a long term decision, but it was the wrong decision because everybody's strapped down for as long as they are.
And ESPN, the one thing about the ACC, and I guess the Pac-12 network, which has been a disaster with ESPN, but one of the things is with ESPN, I believe it is. But the one thing about ACC, they do have their network, and their network, like the SEC, is tied into ESPN. So it's not like they have their contract with ESPN and then they have their tier 3 or whatever you would call that separately with another network.
Well, they can't. The other thing is like, I don't know why ESPN would negotiate against itself.
Well, and Craig, most of the fans feel that way. I just have an inkling that they wouldn't do it just to be nice. They're not going to do it just because you're like your family. It's not going to happen. But there's got to be another reason for them to do that. And there would be a reason that would help their members, the ACC, or their family, but also it would absolutely perhaps free them up as well.
What I would think the only thing that could happen, since you can't have the ACC can't go to Fox, CBS, all these other people right now and try to get a better offer. That's where they're, like Craig said, 13 years at an extreme disadvantage. Now, what could happen, because this isn't their contract, is that Notre Dame could go and say, how much value do we bring to this if we jump in as a football member and we're a full-fledged member of the ACC? And the only reason I would say they would do that to spur in the Big Ten is Notre Dame gets to make their own rules right now, or they get to, and they don't have to follow by anything else. But if they feel they need to be in a conference because TV deals and more media rights and all of that, but they don't want to put up with the headache of having to answer to all the schools in the Big Ten, then they could go to the ACC and say, you're welcome, we're the king now. But I don't really see that happening.
All right, there's a lot going on, as you can imagine, like 5 or 6 different conversations as well with our chat room. We appreciate that. The text line, already got a text from Arizona that's going to ask a question, and we'll answer that for you as well. Then that number is 254-339-1122. Jim Phillips, if we take the path that's only going to be about football and basketball, shame on us. Well, you could actually say you're really taking a path that's only about football, not even basketball, even though that is a very strong revenue sport. And there's another one. On the fear of the Power Fives becoming the Big Two, or Craig calls them the Super Two. All neighborhoods need to be healthy. It's not good for college athletics if we're not. We understand where those two leagues are. We are trying to find ways to close that gap. And the problem is you don't really have too many options to do that. I did speak with somebody today that is a sponsor, tightly wound in with the ACC. He feels as if there is some sort of way that they're going to be able to kind of redo a few things. And he's a sponsor. And he says what's happened, at least from his opinion, is that he feels like some of the sponsors are now blowing back because they feel like there's this arms race at ESPN and Fox. You know, they used to be all like owned by the same thing. But he feels like that there's some sponsors and that they are now starting to get in the ear of the networks and wanting to make sure, hey, slow this down because the money you pay them is coming from us. Just a note doesn't mean that will slow anybody down.
Yeah, Jim Phillips also said on the 50-50 partnership with ESPN and the ACC network, they're motivated, we're motivated, and we've come together to have some discussions about what would be the next iteration for the ACC. Doesn't mean we're going to make a move, doesn't mean we're not going to move, but all options are on the table, and they're having daily conversations about how to increase revenue for the ACC. So, that's all very interesting. I would love to know ultimately what ESPN's ulterior motive is, because there is one, and there is one. I mean, they're not just going by the seat of their pants and just like, let's see where this takes us. No, they've been clearly very calculated, as have the other networks, and how this has all gone down. Fox with the LA schools, that wasn't just overnight that occurred. I think there's a lot going on that we're totally unaware of. Most likely, there's probably some things that have leaked out behind those closed doors that we've gotten, whiffs of and have been able to kind of run with and talk about a little bit. But it's all remaining very curious for the time being on who's going to be that next one to make that first move. And I'm seeing, a couple of different Pac-12 writers who are adamant today about the fact that the Big 12, there's nothing that states factually that they have more value than the Pac-12, and that there's nothing that says that they would have a bigger TV deal, and that basically the Big 12 being stronger is just a social media narrative that the conference is winning. And I don't know if I agree with all of that. I think some people are getting a little too in their feelings over this whole thing, and just because you cover the conference doesn't mean you have to fight for the conference necessarily. Look, I want the Big 12 to survive and do well, but I'm also going to be realistic when the time comes, and it'll be interesting to see who's right. The folks who think the Big 12 is in the stronger position and are the better position to pick off some Pac-12 teams if it comes to that, or if the folks out on the West Coast who have been banging pots and pans still saying, hey, yeah, I know we lost the LA schools, but we're still as strong, and arguably saying still stronger, having lost USC and UCLA, which, I know Tony Altimore's got his slides, and there's other numbers out there, and there's a lot of speculation about what matters to what. I have a hard time believing Pac-12 without the LA schools is a stronger brand than the current Big 12. I have a hard time believing that.
If everybody was in one room, but in how many teams are left? 22 or whatever they are. Both conferences, Pac-12 and the Big 12. And everybody had to put a note that they wanted to leave their conference for the other one. And they had the right, yes or no. How many of the Pac-12 schools would say yes, put it in a slide quietly, and how many of the Big 12 schools would say yes if they were going to go to the Pac-12? I don't know the answer to that. How many do you think? Would it be? It may not be
I think that's a way more loaded question than just black and white, because you're looking at Cal would vote to stay in the Pac-12.
No, I know that.
Oregon would stay in the Pac-12. Well, the entire Pac-12 would stay in the Pac-12.
How many do you think of the Big 12 teams, among those who are coming in and also the ones remaining, would say yes to leaving for the Pac-12?
Right this moment?
Right now, today.
There's too much uncertainty. There's too much uncertainty to be able to make that. If you're asking if they had a TV deal and it was locked in and you knew what that was going to be, then I think you have some clarification. But who in their right mind's jumping to them now? You know what I'm saying?
The other way around.
I don't think – I don't know. That's what I'm saying. If they had their – that's the thing, is what are they basing it off of? Because they're so – I think that the TV deal is what's going to determine whether or not Arizona goes, all right, we're out of here. And until we know that, really – why move? Unless you just feel like, hey, it's about to fall off the side of the cliff and we got to be the first ones to jump out, and somebody makes that move. But I think that's what's happening, is people are gathering as much information as possible and trying to figure out, is this the best move or not? What's this TV deal going to look like? Because let's face it, packing up your bags and moving from one conference to the other and all that comes with that, it's not just flipping a switch. There's a lot that comes with that. So if you're Arizona, I think ideally you'd like to stay exactly where you are and be a powerhouse in this next iteration of the Pac-12. But if the numbers don't make sense, then yeah, you're going to head off to the Big 12 where it does make sense. But right now, we don't know what those numbers are. That's my point.
I do think in Sergeant Pickles 13, I was going to say this, and I'm glad you brought this up on the chat room, is that there are writers columnists, whatever, who cover a conference, Pac-12, and there are some that cover the Big 12 that might kind of be putting their roots in and kind of bowing up. Listen, we want the Big 12 to survive, but we damn sure over the last 24 months have discussed, the last 12 months for sure, have discussed their warts and their hickeys, and maybe not as open, and they're not as obvious as they were back when Texas and Oklahoma bolted because they reacted that quickly.
All I know is one conference just added teams successfully or getting them in a year earlier than they wanted to, and their future beyond the two schools they've already negotiated. They've been working with Texas and Oklahoma. The only thing unsure is when they are actually leaving. You're looking at maybe another 2-3 years of holding the rights of Texas and Oklahoma in your hands, and there's nothing that they can do about it, and you're going to keep raking in that money for at least the next couple of seasons. I know that USC and UCLA, same situation there with the Pac-12, but I just, if you're looking at momentum and whether it's based on social media or based on one guy or this guy or whatever, it just seems to me like the Big 12 coming out of their media days is in a stronger place and a more, a more settled place than it feels like the Pac-12 is at the moment.
I think they have the higher ground for sure. I agree with you there. And what's kind of different about last year to this year is your UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, they're all Houston. They were all waiting for the opportunity to move up. This is, the opportunity to survive. It's a little bit different. So it's not the Pac-12, the Big 12, we can mince words, but you're still moving from a Power 5 to a Power 5. So you're making what at least a month ago in your mind would have been a lateral move.
Yeah.
And that's just to keep your head above water in the new iteration of college football. So it's a little bit of a different thing because, when two schools leave and you decide to add four, and there's four schools out there that have grown to a point where they're certainly capable of being Power 5 schools, and you can just call them up and they'll say yes. That's a little bit of a different scenario than what the Pac-12 is dealing with right now.
Our web is a great chat. We don't have time to do it now. We have a guest coming up, Alexis Cubit, who covers the ACC. How about this? How about you guys do a 16-team draft, as in take the entire Pac and 12 membership and pick the best 16? That would be interesting. I think it would pretty much be
based on what?
On college football moving forward.
No, I know, but based on what? Are we talking about brand size? Are we talking about TV ratings?
I think
we talking about just teams head up.
I think if you could take what's the Pac-12 minus USC, UCLA, the Big 12 plus the incoming four minus Texas and OU, and had a 16-team draft for a conference, it would include everything, because we hear about eyeballs and how a lot of this happens, but a lot of it is also your academic, pedigree, and a lot of it is also. There is tradition involved in this as well.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, though. So you're going to – so Cal technically would be above a ton of other teams because of just simply their market, that we don't even know that it really cares about Cal so much.
Not for everybody.
What do you mean?
I wouldn't want Cal in the top 16.
Well, that's what I'm asking you is what are we basing it off of?
Just your own opinion. I mean, just
okay, well,
on your own opinion.
But I'm guaranteeing there's going to be way more Big 12 schools in my lineup, but a TV executive might say the opposite. That's what I'm asking you is what are we basing it off of? Are we basing it off of passion? Well, guess what? That's going to be Big 12 heavy compared to the Pac-12. Are we basing off who I think is going to show up and show out every single Saturday no matter what? That's going to be heavy on the Big 12 side. Are we basing off who I think's got the best chance to knock on the door of national championships? That's going to be heavy on the Big 12 side. Really, quite frankly, the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that would go to the Pac-12 is market size. And that's why I'm asking you, what are we basing it off of? Because simply on market size, yes, Cal's the Bay Area market and Stanford's the Bay Area market. Sort of, kind of, maybe, but not really, right? They don't carry those markets. They're not like huge fandoms out there based off everything I've read, including from Pac-12 people. It's significant, but it's not like that's the hometown. That's like they represent the Bay Area. It's not like that, right? So in Iowa, in Oklahoma, in Texas, in all these Big 12 places, that is how it is. That is exactly how it is. So if we're going on passion, fans, attendance, all those things, I think all of that falls in the Big 12 overall, ultimately. But market size, which is what, again, is kind of that one of those buzz terms. Yeah, you've got Seattle, and you've got Portland, and you've got San Francisco Bay Area, and that would favor the Pac-12.
All right, here's a Arizona
Even
fan.
though you've got Dallas, Houston, so on and so forth that aren't technically counted because those schools aren't technically. So I guess Fort Worth, Oklahoma City would be your top ones.
It seems to be when you want to add somebody to a television market, you do. And then you also can argue against it if you want to. From Zona Tucson 93. He was asking about what this discussion, and I know some of you are tired of it, but it is on the forefront, and it is simmering, and I think it's simmering, like when you kind of cook something. From Zona Tucson 93, I just flat out asked him, what do you want to see happen? You're a fan. maybe an alum. I guess 93 might be when you graduated. Go to the Big 12. That doesn't mean that's going to make the decision, but to go to the Big 12. I don't know how much or what Mack Rhoades can tell us today. I'm sure there's a lot he just can't talk about, and I get that, but we will at least probe a little bit into what might be going on or where. And I do know that he's been digging deep into television numbers, and really not just pure eyeballs, but various ways of streaming, as far as opportunities for revenue streams. I do know this: when we had him on the day that Brett Yormark was announced as the new commissioner, not officially, but when it was broken, he didn't know much about it. I get the feeling those two are spending a hell of a lot of time talking about many things. And I'm sure, and by the way, before you lose your mind, if you're a part of the other schools in the Big 12, they are all entrenched with Brett Yormark and company as they try to move forward. All right, there's a lot, so many emotions. We appreciate you so much today. 365 Sports and also Sikkim 365 Radio. Put up the note, if you wouldn't mind, Garrett from Riley. Got this in my direct message feed earlier today, and I want to share it with everybody. He told me I could. I have been following your show a lot lately. I grew up in Ames, the place that all Texas schools used to go to beat up on ISU. Now it's not as easy. You, Paul Craig, do a fantastic job giving the Big 12 a platform, and I feel you fairly report on every team. Not necessarily a big ISU fan, but I'd like to see the Big 12 stick together. You're doing an awesome job. Love listening to the show. And Riley, thank you very much for that. And I can't even print all of them from the text line, the chat room. Some of you are so amazingly nice. Text to me, direct messages. We return them all the time whenever we can, so thank you very much for those of you who are new to what we do. And to give you a little bit of perspective, we started this show as mainly a core Baylor station. Yeah, we're in Waco, Texas. And then Texas and Oklahoma, about a year and 3 months into what we started, that story happened. Then all of a sudden we spread throughout the country because somebody and a lot of teams, like, where are we going to, fans, like, where are we going? Who's next? And then USC, UCLA took it up another notch. So we try to be as evenly spread around the country. But yes, we are a core Big 12 station as far as company or whatever. But we love talking about all the other particular schools and programs whenever we can.
Yeah, and nobody here is rooting for the Pac-12 to dissolve, although that shoe may have been on the other foot about a year ago when the Big 12 looked like they were teetering. And I think that's where some of the, angst comes from Big 12 folks towards the Pac-12 country side of things. Is there were a lot of noses in the air and a lot of, I'll see you later, when the Big 12 looked like it was about to just completely disband. And so we all saw that a year ago, and then all of a sudden it happens to the Pac-12 with USC and UCLA, and you can understand why there's some Big 12 fans who are like, screw the Pac-12. Like, that shoe was on the other foot last year. You guys had no problem pushing us off the edge. But ultimately, I think we're all just college football fans. I don't want to see the Big 12 die. I don't want to see the Pac-12 die. I know change is here. It's inevitable, and there's more change on the way because by no means is the ACC just going to sit on their hands till 2036. By no means do I think that the SEC and the Big Ten are done expanding for forever, although maybe it is for a while. Who knows? Although, the same people getting mad about the way the Big 12 is being reported on and perhaps being stronger were also the ones basically guaranteeing that Oregon and Washington were going to be in the Big Ten about 2 weeks ago, right? So, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of personal emotions because people are so passionate and attached. And look, we're going to stay as disconnected, at least I can speak for myself, as disconnected from that as possible because, hey, I want Baylor to end up in a good spot because we live here and we cover Baylor and they've had a lot of success, and I think they can hang with just about anybody in the entire country with their athletic programs currently. But I don't want to see Arizona State just disappear into nothing. I don't want to see Wazoo and Oregon State relegated to playing SFA for a championship, So ultimately, we're all college football fans. So for those that get angry or want to start taking personal shots sometimes like I see, just realize everybody's in the same boat. Everybody just wants their team to come out on top, and it's not all about, kill or be killed, even though that's basically what the SEC and the Big Ten have positioned it as.
All right, we are on until 6 o'clock today. Mack Rhoades at 4:30. Scott Drew will join us at 5:15. And we'll also have, again, Alexis Cubit coming up around the corner. Paul's Top 5 as well today near the end of the show. There was a discussion about campuses and what's nice and whatever. And going to California or Stanford, their campus. I said, hey, Pepperdine's not bad. The view is amazing. Their campus is not like sparkly gorgeous, but it is still one that would be hard if you could to go there and wanted to go there and were offered to go there. You would absolutely want to make that choice. All right, when we come back, and they don't have a football team. When we come back, Alexis Cubit at ACC Media Days, next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dr. Rob Maxey, one of the partners for Ideal MRI. They're a business that helps find out what muscle or ligament or something inside of you is bothering you so much that you can't really function, sleep, or get anything done, and it hurts. So when you need an MRI and your doctor suggests one, your orthopedic surgeon wants one, you tell them about Ideal MRI. They'll know who they are. They're in Waco. They're on the southern part just off of I-35, but everybody knows their story. The story is they have an MRI machine that's as good as anything you can get. It's state-of-the-art technology. They have techs and specialists that are amazing, doctors that read the exams and images. And here's the kicker. An average MRI can be $1,100. Theirs is $497 or less every single time, and that brings up the young woman who called them because she was told by the hospital she needed to go and use their MRI machine. That would have cost her $1,600, including a discount with insurance. She then called Ideal MRI. She heard about them, and guess what? She had an MRI. The MRI was read by a world-class musculoskeletal radiologist. Her MRI was $497. They say it, they mean it, they back it up. Not once, every time. IdealMRI.com, $497 or less every single time at IdealMRI.com.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, the new 2022 Impressive Wagoneer Series 2 and 3 have 2.9% for 72 months, plus $4,500 competitive bonus cash going on now. That's right, and $4,500 bonus cash. This incentive on the new 2022 Wagoneers for a limited time only at Allen Samuels in Waco. First responders get $500 extra cash. Come shop the new car and truck inventory today at Allen Samuels Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients
who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
We knew her when she was in diapers. Alexis Cubit, Baylor graduate, covered Clemson. She's been all over the place, West Texas as well, and now covers Louisville for the Courier Journal Sports at ACC Media Days today. Alexis, I saw the video that was posted. Somebody asked a question behind you. You were in a theater area, whatever. And what was the question that got you that made you give that look?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say that I'm a writer for a reason, and they don't tell you that they pan out when they do these things. So you don't know that you're on camera as well as the person who's talking. So anyway, the question, he asked something about this whole realignment thing and just if the commissioner actually thinks that, what he wants to do as far as just kind of generating revenue is actually going to work, and that the Big Ten and the SEC is lapping financially the ACC. And it was just, I was not ready for someone to just be so blunt and ask something so straight out. So it just kind of caught me off guard, and evidently so did the camera. So, yeah, my Twitter's been blowing up about that, and I've had people actually stop me here at the ACC Media Days and just tell me, I loved your video, or that was so funny. And I have 80 million new followers. I'm just like, okay, guys, I'm not really that entertaining, but I'll do my best.
What was who's the skater, the Ashley Wagner? Remember when she looked at she had that look on her face at the scores? That was your moment, Alexis.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, when you listen to Jim Phillips today talk about, where he feels the ACC is, how much of that do you think is propaganda, and how much of it do you think is actually true?
So that's the interesting thing. I was actually talking to someone about that, and I struggled because he was just so sincere. So I struggle with whether or not he's saying that just to put good faith out there, or whether he truly actually believes, these things. So it remains to be seen on that. But I mean, he sold it well, because we're obviously having a conversation about whether or not he actually meant it. But, he's new, so you have to factor that. I mean, he hasn't been on the job. I think it's been 18 months or something like that. So, I mean, you want to try to put in as much good faith and belief as possible. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, everything boils down to the bottom dollar. So they're going to have to figure something out.
Alexis, just in the small talk going on around there amongst reporters and whatnot in between interviews, how much is what's going on, this current storyline of expansion or lack thereof and realignment, how much is that a part of the conversations out there at Media Days?
Oh, it's a lot of it. I mean, you look at every single coach that's got up, and that's been something. I talked to Scott Satterfield, Global's coach, about, they are doing something different because they're getting rid of the divisions. But, I mean, that's a big thing you have to think about, because if USC and UCLA can go to the Big Ten, clearly anything is possible as far as what schools go into what conferences. So that's definitely something in the back of their minds. And then the commissioner said something about having 17 teams in the conference, and so everyone was kind of jumping on that. It might have just been a Freudian slip, who knows? But, I mean, it's definitely got everybody on the edge as far as what actually is going to happen. Can the ACC keep up? Can they close that revenue gap? And, right now that just remains to be seen, because Notre Dame has absolutely no reason to join the ACC. But Jim Phillips seems to think that if they were to join somewhere, that it would be the ACC. They tried it out, obviously, in 2020 and ended up making the college football playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But they were for sure in the ACC championship against Clemson, rather. So, I mean, it's an interesting thing because you think, college football, there's so much more than just, playing a game. So, yeah, very, very interesting time.
You mentioned Notre Dame doesn't have to do anything, and that's one of the things we look at when it comes to the grant of rights for the ACC. I get the feeling that for some reason ESPN will do something. Nobody of major sources told me that. Maybe some sponsors. My question is, why would ESPN help the ACC?
That's a good question. That's a very good question that, still, again, remains to be seen. We spoke with Louisville's AD, Josh Hurd, who just, became the full-time AD recently, and he seems to think that, ESPN is looking out for the ACC and they have their best interest in mind. I mean, that's kind of what he said, and that was another tweet that, got out there and was kind of like, okay, but yeah, it's a lot is going on and changing, and there's so much behind the scenes that we just don't really know about right now that you just kind of have to wait on the edge and see what happens. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how all that transpires.
Do you think that some of the bigger brands like Clemson, Louisville, FSU, North Carolina, Virginia, right now, those bigger schools are kind of simmering and not letting anything out because they want to see where it goes, but behind the scenes they have to be pretty upset about the things that are going on around them?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that as much as everybody loves to talk about tradition and keeping their conferences and stuff, it boils down to money. Like Clemson is a big it's a big brand. And I think someone did an article with Steve Spurrier, and he said that Clemson was an SEC type school. So you could definitely see them joining. I remember last year there was a rumor out about FSU and Clemson going to the SEC right after OU and Texas did. I mean, so there is really no incentive anymore to stay in conferences just for the sake of being in a conference. It's about where you can make the most money. It's about where you can get the most exposure and be seen by recruits, get the best players, have the best teams. Right now, for a lot of teams, the Big Ten and the SEC seems to present those opportunities. So when you look at the schools that are in the ACC and, whether or not they have any real incentive other than the fact that they're going to have to pay a crap ton of money to get out their grant of rights, there's really not a whole lot of incentive to stay in the conference, honestly. So I think that grant of rights goes through 2036, I want to say. So they're locked in for a long time. So it's not like they can move immediately. But I definitely think that's something that a lot of schools are going to have to think about moving forward.
Alexis, will you turn around to everybody behind you and tell them to shut up for a second? Just
is it too loud still?
It's pretty loud in the background. I didn't know. Okay. I know you're probably in a media area. Maybe even a get together afterwards as well. Okay. It's a little bit better now. Alexis Cubit covers Louisville for the Courier Journal Sports with us on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Alexis, you're on the Louisville beat now. You were on the Clemson beat. When OU and Texas jumped, what do you remember there being the reaction? And do you recall, were you on the Clemson beat when that happened, right?
Yeah,
okay.
That was last summer, yep.
Just in talking to folks around there, what do you remember that reaction being? And yes, the grant of rights is in place. So that would be hard to get out and whatnot. But did you gather a feeling, I guess is what I'm trying to get to, that there was a little bit of jealousy on the part of, let's say, a Clemson to see a move like that? Or do you get the feeling that they, like a Louisville, is content being ultimately in a conference like the ACC? Yeah,
well, the first thing when that came out was, in this day and age of Twitter where people just post anything, it's like, okay, this is clearly, someone trolling. Like, this is not really happening. And then when you see the more reports get confirmed, it's just like, oh, okay, all right, this is interesting. Kind of different move. But yeah, no, I remember, I think we talked to Dabo about it last year, and he just basically said that, it's going to end up being like a Premier League type thing where you will have, basically super conferences and things like that. And that's just kind of the way that they're moving as far as, whether or not these teams would do that. It's been kind of hush-hush as far as that goes. And then there was a rumor, like I mentioned, that Clemson and FSU were going to jump to the SEC last year. Someone had put that out there, and obviously that wasn't true, but for how long, you know? So yeah, it's, I definitely, like I said, I think it would be in their best interest for everyone to kind of look around and see the landscape and figure out how you can kind of survive. Because, I mean, you look at what happened with the quote-unquote the alliance with the Big Ten and ACC and the Pac-12, and that didn't last very long. So, you know, at the end of the day, you kind of have to look out for your school and what works best. But as far as, you know, the bigger brands like Clemson and FSU, I think they'll be the next ones to watch.
So what's the story this year in your mind with Louisville? I mean, obviously a kind of middle-of-the-road season last year. We're able to get into a bowl game, lost that bowl game, finished 6-7.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's kind of the I guess, Emma, or what's kind of the story, the summary of them right now heading into next season?
Yeah, so obviously the big thing is Malik Cunningham. You know, it was actually kind of funny. He came in with a red suit today. It was very Lamar Jackson-esque from the Heisman night. So, you know, a couple people asking questions about that. But, I mean, his last year, he's obviously an amazing quarterback. Maybe doesn't get talked about as much as some of the other ones because of the records not being so great. But I think this year they have a lot to prove because part of what they said the past 2 years is just, you know, COVID, and they had some injuries, but they've got their big players back, like their linebacker, Monty Montgomery, went out with an ACL deal last year. One of their corners, Keatrell Clark, went out with an ACL deal last year. They had a couple players with some ACL issues, but now they're back and they're healthy, you know, so they're ready to go as far as that goes. They had some transfers come in in the DB room and the wide receivers. They have 3 running backs, so they've got all the pieces to be really good. The problem is that their schedule is unforgiving. It's a very, very tough backloaded schedule, because if you look at the last 3 games, they go to Clemson, then they host NC State, and then they're at Kentucky.
Yeah,
they haven't beaten Kentucky since Satterfield got there. Clemson hasn't lost a home game since 2016, if I recall correctly, like 34, 37 games straight that they've won at home. And then NC State is the favorite to win, well, one of the favorites to win the ACC. So you look at that, you know, that's not easy. And then you got Pitt at home, so that shouldn't be, I mean, Pitt's still going to be good. You go to Boston College in October, which, I mean, who even knows what the weather's going to be in Boston in October. So their best bet is to try to stack up as many wins as possible during that early stretch where they go to Syracuse, they go to UCF, they get Florida State at home. Sorry, Paul. They got USF at home. So, I mean, if they can manage to go 4-0 during those first games, and maybe get like a, you know, catch a Pitt off guard or pick up a Rosen at Virginia, I think they'll be in good shape. But, I mean, you've got just that last stretch is just really, really difficult. So, you know, as much as they've improved and as much experience as they have back, I mean, it's going to be put to the test early and often with that schedule.
Alexis, to wrap it up, we appreciate your time, and it sounds a lot better now. Thank you very much for moving a little bit.
No problem.
What was the overall mood today? Was it tenuous, anxiety? Was it positive? Was it curious? What was the overall mood, you think, today in the ACC at the Media Days?
I think it was just very, very chaotic. And what I mean by chaotic is that there's just so much going on in college football. So there's just so much ground to cover, you know, with the realignment, and then with the resolving of, you know, the divisions for next year. And Jim Phillips said that was basically a move to kind of help out with the college football playoff situation, where it's not, you know, the top 2 teams in the divisions, but it's the top 2 teams in the overall conference. So if you have, you know, 2 really good teams in a division, obviously they can't both make the ACC championship. So they feel like this model is a little more conducive, and they are advocating for an expanded college football playoff. So Commissioner Phillips talked about that, and it's just a lot going on, and, you know, a lot of movement, a lot of new coaches. In Virginia's got a new coach. It's just a lot going on. So a lot of tough topics to cover, a lot of ground to kind of try to, you know, get some quotes and things on. But, yeah, it should be a very, very interesting football season, that's for sure.
Alexis, thank you. Appreciated what you did when you were interning with us a few years ago, and now love what you're doing. Congratulations on where you are and what you're doing. Congratulations. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, guys. I owe it all to you guys where I got my start.
We had a great time when she was at Baylor, and And then, of course, covered some stuff. Went up north, was it Minnesota, Paul? And then went to West Texas, then covered Clemson, and now covering Louisville as well.
I wonder if she'd have a comment on the desert controversy.
I think Alexis would be very political about it, but I think there's a reason that she went to Clemson.
Yeah, we have not. We have not, and we will at least touch on it a little bit later on with the cactus and cacti and all that with Texas Tech, and they're swarming the Twitter feed and how that began. We'll have that. That's an interesting note as well. Here's from Jeff Grimm. You guys appreciate it, Jeff. You guys are best people to have to understand. Sometimes people come on and don't realize the background noise is a problem. You handled it great. Yeah, it was a little bit annoying, but you kind of just had to stop maybe doing your chat or whatever and listen a little bit intently. We appreciate Alexis for that.
I want to know who the guy was that was so loud.
Some guy
like he's drowning out the girl on the phone with it to her mouth, and he's still like louder than she is. It's amazing how much someone can bellow, I guess.
Craig, you remember when we were at the Super Bowl in Houston and Josh Ennis was next to us. Yeah. And there were times
the show?
The guy who was formerly in Houston now. I don't know what he's doing, but he's the guy who got kicked out of the Radio Row in Minnesota the next year. Yeah.
Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis the year after that. But he was right down from us, probably 2 tables, and it was a Houston station, so all the Houston stations had big booths. So he had this big stage, and he was also high up above, and he was just bellowing everything, and his show was on the last hour overlapped Craig's first hour. So there were times
like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, and so it was, you would hear it, and it was just ridiculous.
The Arizona fan, by the way, the 252, who's texted us on many things. He had a couple of questions about trying to explain the environments at Big 12 stadiums and you know, as far as the attendance and all that. And yeah, there's some big boy stadiums, no question, with Texas and Oklahoma, and Texas Tech is ramping theirs up, getting bigger. I asked him, I said, what is Arizona's capacity? 57,000, which would put it in the higher level, upper level of the Big 12, in that above, depends on how many teams you're talking about. But even in 1998, when we were really good, packed the seats, people would still leave early. And it's one of the things we've discussed about the Pac-12. There are so amazing campuses, programs, histories, traditions, academics, all of that, eyeballs. The question, and I even get this from when I discuss things with Pac-12, either fans and or analysts, is they're not so sure how many of those teams are really all in when it comes to playing football. The one thing you can say about everybody in the Big 12, no matter if they've struggled, no matter if they have no big city around them, is there seems to be, without question, a passion across the board when it comes to football, even when things aren't very good. And he also was wondering, I've heard this could be a positive. The late night starts. Somebody's got to put late night games on their network, right? You know, Pac-12 after dark or whatever. So the late night starts, I've heard that's a good or bad. I don't know. No one's told me that from any of the networks. But who else is going to play 9:30 Central Time anywhere other than the Pac-12 or the Mountain West or other schools and other conferences?
It's not 9:30 there when it starts.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's 7:30 there, 9:30 and 10:30 on the East Coast. I don't know how that all works. I would think that actually it could either be looked at as a positive or negative.
That's part of the debate going on, and I see that being used, that window on TV, as a positive for the Pac-12. I think BYU could fill at least a couple of those weeks if they so chose. And, you could round it out. Maybe if you post those others, then there's your 9:30 window. I don't see what's really hard about that if you're the Big 12. Like, you've got BYU. If you were to add some Pac-12 schools, there's your valuable 9:30 window. I don't know for sure, but I will trust those who are out there, the John Wilners of the world, who are using that as like, hey, this is one thing that's a positive for the Pac-12, but I don't know why that couldn't just be counteracted by having some of those schools and BYU just do the same thing and then also have the rest of the Big 12. I don't know why it's made like that they can only do that or something. I guess because the majority of their schools are out there. In the current configuration, yes, that's their window. But, yeah, how valuable – I mean, is that valuable enough to basically save the conference? And maybe that's too much, but if that's like the driving factor, if that's the leading factor and why right this very moment they are standing a little stronger, then I think that's a little flimsy.
Here's what I don't understand. When USC was in their run, and they've had their various runs, they've had their various runs of a dynasty, so to speak. I didn't care what time they played. I watched them.
Yeah.
So you need to also have some dogs that are, Oregon's had their moment. You have the dogs and a reason to stay up late if you're a college football fan.
There were some USC games on that were Pac-12 after dark, and I don't know. There's one in particular. I don't remember the pump, but I vividly remember sitting down, and I turned it off after 5 minutes. And I'm as big a college football fan. I love Pac-12 after dark, but I was like, there was nobody in the stands. USC sucked. They were lame duck coaching staff, and it was like Oregon State or something, which BJ Baylor was fun to watch, but outside of that, I didn't care. But yeah, I mean, if it's a good product, I'm going to watch it, and no matter what time it's on. And yeah, I watch a lot of Pac-12 after dark because it's simply the last thing that's on my TV, the same way Hawaii pulls some ratings just because they're the last thing that's on, So I'm sure there's some great value there, but again, to what extent, I don't know. And I don't know that, if there's any major difference in having Cal Oregon State at 9:30 available versus having BYU versus Texas Tech. I think BYU versus Texas Tech will probably trounce that game.
Well, and
remember Washington State's not bad.
No, I know. I'm not. And this is not anytime we make a point, it's not anti-Pac-12 if it's against the Pac-12. It's not anti-Big 12. It's just reality.
But if that's the point, and to hammer kind of home what you said, if the point is that's a big thing, if 4 teams from that time zone come over there, then you have plenty of teams to fill those slots. So it's not something that would not move over. As a matter of fact,
teams in the central time zone are going to have to play out there on occasion.
Oklahoma State goes and plays Arizona in the 9:30 window. Problem solved. I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't really get why that's being held up as like this key part of this 9:30 TV window and its value. Okay, it's valuable. But is it only valuable if it's the Pac-12 schools playing in 9:30, or is it just valuable, period? Because if it's just valuable, period, then I don't know how this is an argument for the Pac-12 other than they just conveniently have the most teams in that window available. But if you are the Big 12 and you were to somehow finagle adding some of those said teams, well, problem solved. You have a handful of teams, and then you bring up, hey, Baylor, sorry, it sucks to play at 9:30, but you're going to Provo, and you're going to play on Saturday night, and that's part of the deal.
They're kicking at 9 o'clock Provo time this year, aren't they?
I think it is.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock Provo time when they go out there.
8 o'clock here.
Yeah, so it's
let's hear from some of the fans of the Pac-12 teams, that we've been reading some of that as well. Here's from Redeemed, and we're at the top of the hour. We'll be breaking here in a second. Great point. I'm a Colorado alum, and I question if Colorado is all in on football. I'd have to say in the last 20 years, the answer is no. However, if they ever do go all in, they have enormous potential. That's from a Colorado fan. Now, on and off, they've, of course, they had the McCartney years and a handful of others, but that's from a Colorado fan. Doesn't mean they're a bad school, but that's the question you wonder about the commitment. And maybe they're just in a bad cycle, because even Blue Bloods right now, some of them are in a bad cycle.
Stephen Montez and all those kids they pulled from DeSoto.
Lavachi, what was his name?
Laviska Chenault. Yeah. And those guys, they had a pretty good, very short run a couple years back that was fun. Mostly fun because they were a bunch of Texas guys that were playing well for them. Chenault was one. Montez was one. Since Montez left, I guess these last couple of years haven't been so great. But, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the honesty. I mean, there's a lot of people I've seen chime in who live out in California now or have been on the West Coast previously, and they will give their anecdotes about how much the area that they were in seemed to care or not care about college football. And there's an argument of just, how much care there is. There's not that argument here. There's simply not. We're in Texas. There is no argument. The argument, bringing up the argument's a stupid thing to do because there's no argument. I'd say the same thing for Oklahoma. I'd say the same thing for pretty much the whole swath, if not the entire swath of the current and the incoming Big 12. They're going to be football hungry. And I don't know that you can say that about Stanford and Cal the same way that you can, no matter how big their schools are or their allotments are or their media areas are. I don't know that you can say that same thing. So it's hard to solve things on social media, let's put it that way, because you never quite know what angle people are coming from.
There was one other thing about the ESPN ACC. We'll come back with that from area code 573. Don't let me forget that, Garrett, because I will, just because of my attention deficit span. On why he thinks the ESPN, at least an idea why ESPN would want to increase the ACC payout. The text line, 254-339-1122. Chat room, it's off and running. And we're here until 6. Mack Rhoades joins us at 4:30, Baylor AD. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, and they have been for over 23 years now in Central Texas, and they are who I've counted on a couple of different times over the last 6 months or so when it comes to getting my vehicle repaired. They've done a great job as far as getting everything squared away after a couple of little accidents that I got into, fender benders, if you will. So I can trust them with my car. I didn't even buy it from them originally, but I know that the next time I do need to go into car buying mode, they will be the people I count on once again because of the way they've treated me as a non-customer fixing my vehicle. So if you're in the market for a new or used car, well, don't wait any longer. They've got cars and trucks arriving weekly over at Richard Carr. Get your name on that inbound vehicle list if you're looking to buy new, and basically what that does is it puts you in line. It's your placeholder to first come, first serve, get that new vehicle of your dreams as soon as it arrives. The sooner you get on that list, the sooner your vehicle arrives, the sooner you have that new car that you've been wanting. So don't hesitate. Call or go by the dealership today to get your name on that inbound vehicle list to reserve a brand new Buick, GMC, or Cadillac. But if you need a car today, consider one of their dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks. All of them go through a 172-point inspection so you can drive them with peace of mind, and they will pay top dollar on your trade with dozens of lending options. They'll say yes when others say no, so go online or come by to check out that inventory today. Trust the good local people you can count on. Again, over 2 decades in Central Texas, run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
A couple of things we started this show. There is simmering, and what I mean by that is for anything for me to grab this and say this is going to happen. All I know is that Colorado's having yet another meeting. All I know is that there are other schools in the Pac-12 that are seriously looking at options. Yes, and the Big 12's looking at options for what they have, and the Pac-12 is trying to stay together and say everything right. And we wish everybody from coast to coast a chance that they could all stay together. I'm not into this big Super 2. I know that might eventually happen. That's another story until it does. But I would not be surprised. I really would not be surprised. And Mack Rhoades may not be able to tell us this, but there are a couple of schools right now in the Pac-12 that are ready to go. Ready to go. And whether they can say anything publicly or not, a lot of that might be because they don't want to get themselves in legal help or trouble or not. But I think you could feel it. You could just feel that along the way. And again, Mack's not going to be able to confirm that with us at all.
I wonder how many of the Super 2 conferences that aren't behemoths are,
there's only 2 Super 2 conferences.
The teams.
Okay.
Teams that aren't behemoths like Ohio State or Bama or, some of those. Like, I'm sure they sit around and go, thank God we are where we are. But if you ask them, what do you think your future is if television decides, like, Northwestern doesn't bring a lot of value to this.
Oh, this is the Vanderbilt talk we're having here.
Yeah. So, but like that's they're good now.
Will be the test for a conference in the SEC that has always looked at their conference the way the NFL looks, and everybody has to be our strongest link.
Yeah,
our weakest link has, and that will be tested.
I think that they've programmed it now though to where they can avoid that because every game's going to have a good rating. Because how often are Vandy and like the other lowest level, perhaps ratings getter? And I don't know, Vandy might not be there. I'm just throwing them out there as far as like. If we're talking brands, they're the last one you're going to mention in the SEC.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much Vandy, South Carolina brings in eyeballs, but how often are you going to get that? Because of the teams that are laid out now, almost every game is going to have Oklahoma or Texas or Auburn or Bama or Georgia or Florida or LSU or Tennessee look over the Big Ten. It's not quite that way, but now that you've got USC in there, there's at least one more. Not so much UCLA because let's face it, like that's the LA market, but it's. You know what I mean.
They've been mediocre there. Almost.
There's going to be more of a chance of getting Indiana versus, who would be another team like Northwestern versus, how often that could probably happen in the SEC. But it's not going to happen as often. Like, there's not going to be a lot of just bottom of the barrel games. Every game, because there's so many teams now in those two conferences, is going to have at least one program that's probably bringing in a couple million at the very least. So I think that was strategic, and I think it's smart. And lay out the SEC schedule however you want to, but Arkansas is going to play Texas, and then Arkansas is going to play Oklahoma, and then Arkansas is going to play Tennessee, and then they're going to play A&M. So where are the bad ratings going to come from?
Yeah.
And we know with those fan bases that no matter how bad you are, they're going to cling on. I don't know if that's so much the case in other parts of the country as it is in the SEC. So there's some genius there.
Are they? Yeah. They'll like the ratings, they'll like their money. But, Craig, you made this point a bunch of times. Are they going to like the fact that it's going to be even harder for them to win? Like South Carolina.
Well, the Vanderbilt coach today, Paul and Craig, was saying that we're going to be a powerful football. They're 2-10, and I hate it for them because it's a great school. Is it going to be easier for them now?
Good. Well, look, good luck. And I hope he's right because that would mean that the networks are wrong, and there is parity in college football that can happen, and they're not just trying to whittle it down to what matters. And Vanderbilt's are where they are, but if it was down to just drafting people on program success, it wouldn't be that way. But if you're South Carolina and you've never won the SEC, and then you've got all these other teams joining,
Well, there's two.
You're never, ever, you're never, ever going to win it now. You maybe feel like as a fan.
Well,
I think that, you're wiping your tears, like the meme of wiping your tears like $100 bills. That's basically what's going to happen. I mean, everybody wants to believe that they have a chance, including Vandy and South Carolina, but there is also being realistic and knowing that, like, hey, you weren't getting past Bama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Tennessee, et cetera, to begin with. Yes, it's going to make it harder having now Oklahoma and Texas, but what's the difference between being 12th and being 14th? You know what I mean? Or 14th versus being 15th. I see your point there. I do wonder for those, but like for those who haven't really experienced much success, but if there's suddenly like, let's say a Tennessee was suddenly, and they've been down, but like down, and that became a recurring issue, then maybe a program who's used to winning at a high level would get sick of that, but that's going to have to like happen, like we're going to have to see a team like really struggle for years and not win nearly as many games as they would like, to the point where that money is outweighed by unhappiness on the field.
Well, Nebraska's dealing with that.
Exactly, but they're not going anywhere,
are
they?
Exactly because
right.
that check is big.
Exactly.
From the 573, Smokey, one thing to consider with why ESPN will increase the ACC payout. If Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and others leave for the SEC, it will cost ESPN $100 million per school instead of just giving the ACC a pay bump to somewhere, let's say, between, he said, $60 million per school. Oh, see, and I don't know, what is, just put all this together. If a team leaves and they have to pay the exit fees, does ESPN get that? No. Do they get the grant of rights? No. The conference does. And then there's a chance, again, that any of those teams could bolt somewhere else. And that gets into another. One of the things, Paul, I brought up, and you weren't here last week. So you're meaning to tell me we go to a Super 2, all right? Get that. They get that.
By the way, if that catches on, you heard it here first, the Super 2, but I like that we're using that now.
So you get these powerful conferences that are going to play their own thing, and I still cannot imagine it gets to that point, if it does, anytime like soon. So you mean to tell me Oregon, Washington, right now Baylor, Oklahoma State, who are pretty good, or last year's teams, Clemson, Florida State, if they get back to where they need to be, Clemson is, they're not going to be able to play for a national championship, but Rutgers and Vanderbilt can, and Northwestern can, and Maryland can, because they're a part of the right conference.
Yeah, it's upset.
That's never going to be. There's no way that happens.
No, and again, I keep thinking about what Bill Hancock said about how people will watch and people will watch. No, those are the people that aren't going to watch. The people that aren't going to watch, especially, are the ones whose teams used to be in the hunt, but now have been deemed unworthy because of a contract made outside their control 15 years before it happens. That's going to piss off fan bases, and you're going to lose viewers eventually. And that's the hubris of all this is going on, is that you will watch what we will tell you to watch, and you will like it, and it doesn't matter where you went to school. It doesn't matter who you're a fan of. It doesn't matter where you live. We're putting these games on, and you will watch. But if ESPN's model was all that successful, they would have had crisis points anytime during the last decade over what they're going to carry and how. So, again, this is not, they're trying to reinvent the wheel here when really all they needed to do was give us one thing that we wanted, which was a better playoff. And now they're really running the risk of pissing even more people off. They were pissing all of college football off because of 14 playoff. And now they're running the risk of making them mad forever, not just for that 1 year.
Yeah, but where else is, where are you going to put your games? There's only so many. That's where I think Fox can slip in and obviously do some damage here, and will, and they'll have their big deal and their agreements and whatever. And then there's the streaming services, and that's, who knows where all that's really going. But yeah, there's two major conferences, and then there's the question of Notre Dame, and there's a question of ACC, and those are the two real big ones. And obviously the Big 12, Pac-12. Kind of remains to be seen here over the near future how all that will evolve. But Notre Dame staying put, hadn't been much smoke surrounding them, and that's gone on now for at least 2 or 3 weeks. You're kind of just sitting back and waiting on them potentially signaling what they might do one way or the other, and they've really done nothing to speak of. And the ACC, today, one of Jim Phillips' comments was that they need ESPN and ESPN needs them. So I think, as much as ESPN is the big bad guy, and as much as, yes, they were absolutely involved to some extent in creating all of this, they still need content. They still need, people to fill time slots. And so I do see your point of where they could come in and throw a life raft to the ACC. And so, not a life raft, but throw a little extra something their way. But my big question is just over time, how does that work? Because this isn't going to – what little chunk of change they might throw them to revamp that contract and make them feel a little bit better about their spot and where they are and things. I just don't see how that's going to be significant enough for long enough in the near enough future for it to not be something that we walk through this scenario again in 2 to 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's why I'm just very curious to see what these immediately next moves are. And if there is, in fact, something that happens, because even if the ESPN and ACC agree, hey, we're going to give you a little bit more money and this is going to kind of settle the waters, we're going to do this again in a few years. I mean, we're absolutely going to. So there's a million questions, and I don't think there's but maybe a couple of answers that have actually come out. And I know some people, it maybe gives them tirehead, but I think it's been fascinating to see just how much of this brings people out of the woodworks, and even college football fans who maybe don't tweet about college football or tweeting about college football, or maybe don't care about college football in the month of July, that are suddenly fascinated by college football in the month of July. So as much of an annoyance as it is for some, and as much of a complete uncertainty it is for many, it has been a boon in so many ways for the sport. Now, whether that boon is immediately going to benefit them in the here and now and then benefit them in the long run, I don't know, because it might benefit them right now and then kill them in the long run. But folks like Mr. College Football Playoff Bill Hancock thinks that they can do whatever they want to and there will be no damage suffered, and I don't agree with that. I think they do have to be calculated and careful, everybody involved, with how exactly they try and pull off whatever moves they're respectfully, individually trying to pull off.
Here's a couple of texts I want to read from those who are following what we do, and we do spend a lot of time reading the chat and text or whatever. But here's what this is: someone who's a sponsor of things that go on within the ACC. For the next 5 years, I don't see anything going forward, really any significant movement. Our country may not even be here in 5 years. All that's going on now are trades for media rights and potential alliances, and we've seen what that's done. And people thinking that Fox and ESPN are at each other's throats because they're competitors. They're not. The pecking order: ESPN, Fox, and NBC. CBS is not in that mix, which, again, right now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. With streaming services wanting to align with the best packages, and remember what happened with Netflix. Everybody thought they would take over, and the bottom fell out. There are concerns from Fox, NBC, and ESPN that could happen to them. They are all very concerned that the fan blowback may first sink them individually, and none of those networks are in financial shape that they can rest easily when they go to bed at night.
Well, Bill Hancock was not the source there. That's very clear. That's a complete opposite opinion, really. But, yeah, I mean, you saw Netflix have a huge sigh of relief because their money situation improved a little bit from what they thought it was going to be as far as subscriber losses. There was this big, few weeks ago, stock went down big time.
Million subscribers, yeah.
And they lost a bunch of. But that was projecting what they were going to lose, and then they got so they were projected to lose like millions of subscribers or whatever it was, and that was all speculation, which shows you how wonky the stock market is. All just speculation, because speculation said they were going to lose all these subscribers, and the stock price goes just free falling. And then actual numbers come out, and they lost a little bit, but not nearly what they thought. And stock price goes way back up again, in the immediacy. So I think that they got good news here recently that they thought was going to be horrific news, but it does show you how quickly those things can change and how you do have to be careful with your investments and what you choose to align yourself with. So when people have brought up streaming services, I think there's definitely, a whole universe to explore there, but I do think that it's not just a given that they're all going to be like rushing to the table to get college football broadcasts.
And then you're also talking about there are 3 independent streaming services that have money, and that's Netflix, Amazon, and Apple. But when you talk about Paramount Plus or Peacock or Hulu, those are all tied into other entities. So when you get a deal with ESPN or Disney, that's Hulu. When you get a deal with NBC, that's Peacock. When you get a deal with CBS, that's Paramount Plus. So
are those like a rotating, like musical chairs sometimes with those?
Well, I mean, with the right, it depends on Because you watch shows like, if you want to watch Yellowstone at a certain point.
Oh, I can't wait for the next one.
If you want to watch Yellowstone at a certain point, you have to watch on this app. But then after a certain point, you have to watch on another one because of where the rights were before all this went down when they signed the original contract. It doesn't make any sense. But, or it's hard for the layman to understand. But those things all rotate. So if the streamers, if the big dogs, the independent ones, Netflix, Amazon, and Apple want to get involved, that'll be really interesting. I, for one, don't really see that happening with college sports until, that coming in until later, just because I think that if you look at what Apple's doing, what's going to happen with the NFL Sunday ticket, Amazon or Apple is probably going to get that. And what they do with that and how much money they have to spend on that. Now, those two companies can pretty much buy everything, but is it worth it to them to buy those rights knowing that there's other subscription fees and all that go with it? I don't know. But really, the networks have to make their move before the streamers do.
Garrett, check your email. See if we can go to this email from Jason Shear. It's a tweet from Jason Shear. But we have a break coming up here in a moment with Mack Rhoades coming up around the corner. Let me know when you get it. The chat room today has had a nice little surge, a little bit yesterday. I don't know if Emery and Levi, you've noticed it. Nice little surge yesterday with some Oregon and other fans. And then today, there have been more Pac-12 fans. Some of you now just picking this up. We wish your program and conference the best. If something changes, something changes. Believe me, everybody that's been in this position, it is not easy to deal with now or moving forward because we know it's an unknown, even for some schools and some conferences that feel like they're in pretty good shape.
You just said it. It's an unknown. The Pac-12 is not dead. There was a lot of people that claimed that they were. The Big 12's not dead. There was a lot of people, including from Pac-12 country, last year saying that they were. And, they made a quick move. They didn't waste any time. They went and grabbed 4 schools. And you look at the values and all of that, and guess who the top 4 schools were? The ones that the Big 12 got. So I think that they moved quickly and made the right decision to kind of solidify what they could solidify, having probably little to no idea that all this hell was going to break loose. But I think that they did to some extent because that's why they talked about some other schools, San Diego State being one of those, Boise State,
Memphis,
SMU, others. And for anybody that wants to doubt, all these conferences have scouted. They're not just all of a sudden like, oh, man, we better go look. They're always looking. They're always looking to see what brand might add value. So those conversations took place. Those conversations are probably still taking place to some extent. But I think part of the reason why they stopped where they did and didn't go even further with it was they had their interviews or talks or discussions with Memphis, SMU, et cetera, and realized, hey, this isn't going to add very much, and probably also realized, the Pac-12 contract's coming up pretty soon, right? And realized after the Oklahoma and Texas moves that a whole lot of things are possible, and I don't think that any of that was just coincidence.
Well, and those other schools, and some of them have to do more. They have, in fact, Boise State with Jeremiah Dickey, AD has mentioned that to us, that they have things to do, like add more seats to their stadium, and they are. And unfortunately for those schools that were left out of any changes a year ago, now they're almost like stuck.
Well, now you have to hope the Pac-12 survives, and that you get an invite there. Yeah,
Garrett, do you have it? This is from Jason Shear. We've had him on now 3 times in the last couple of weeks. Does a great job. Interesting. This is from a guy that covers Arizona and the Pac-12. Interesting that one of the main Pac-12 writers is on a full-blown PR campaign today. That doesn't mean he is, but that's the suggestion. Nothing is ever by accident, in my opinion. It's almost, and Paul, you can probably do this, and Craig better than I can. There are things as a business or as a brand or as a politician. You float something out there to see what the reaction is, right?
Well, yeah, for sure.
I'll give you an example. Last year after we
just talked about. The 4 Big 12 candidates, Boise State and SMU, that was floated to you as to basically, in my opinion, to basically test the waters. And there was some backlash from me. SMU, boo, Boise State, what? And there was some backlash. And I recall some reporters like, there's nothing. I'm telling you, man, he's not reporting it if there ain't something to it. I'm going to promise you that till the day I die. If there's anything I know for sure, there's that. So that's number one. And number two, I just explained it. There are conversations like that going on, but not necessarily reported or certified and confirmed, but enough tea leaves can be read to know that the Big 12 did their due diligence on those schools and ultimately decided to pass on those schools. Yeah. There's the story for you,
Yeah. Or at very least pause until...
Yes, or pause.
Pause.
Yeah. Because why? Because of what's going on right this very moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jacob, I know Jacob _DS50, you are a huge Boise State fan, and I get it. And a year ago, maybe September, there were bright like clouds or maybe sunshine, but right now it does appear as if that right now is running in mud. But don't give up, and we'll see what happens because something can change. Just wait in the college football landscape as well. All right, now the text line from Joel. One more, and then we break. You've mentioned this before on your show, and I think it's worth reminding people from time to time. If market size was all that mattered, Houston would be heading to the SEC. Texas would be in the American. Austin's a pretty big city.
No, Austin at this
market
point's
size
way
alone
up there.
doesn't matter as much as the number of fans watching your program. But yes, there are certain schools attached to certain big boy cities that are not a part of the conversation. But it depends on how you want to kind of position that. Cal, Stanford, San Francisco, right? Washington, Seattle. Arizona State, Phoenix, Utah, Salt Lake City, Colorado, Denver, right?
Stanford would be, Oakland, San Francisco, the whole Bay Area. But yes, but like how much of, there's this many million people live in San Francisco, Oakland, all surrounding areas. How many of them are watching Cal Stanford though? That's the thing.
Yeah, and again, that's normal because something about the Pac-12 that is fair to bring up, and they all admit this, is that even if you talk about Seattle, and we know Softy Mahler, great talk show host up in Seattle, he loves covering Washington football. It's a pro sports town. San Francisco and Oakland, pro sports towns. L.A. is pro sports town. Phoenix is a pro sports town, right? Denver's a pro sports town. Dallas is, if you listen to talk radio there, but it has a massive passion of not just Texas or maybe Texas Tech fan base. Baylor's got alums. Oklahoma. It's a big-time sports town.
It's a football town.
It is. It's a football
town.
It's
a football town.
And Houston is somewhat that way, too.
Whatever kind of football. In Dallas,
it could be all kinds of
grind
football.
it up into a powder and they'll snort it. But
absolutely.
No, to his point, though, a better example would be, look, the number 32 market in the country is Hartford, New Haven. The number 31 market is San Antonio. Number 33 is Columbus, Ohio. So if you were basing it on that, then Ohio State wouldn't get a pick until 33rd, right? So, but UTSA and UConn would be in ahead if it was just about TV markets.
Yeah, it was just about markets. But Ohio State might be the number one pick overall. I don't know who, off the top of my head, like as of 2021 season, has the highest raise, but I think they got to be number one or right there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it's just about the market size you're in and your footprint of your specific area, there's lots. Cincinnati would have been a long time ago.
Yeah, but circling all the way back, and I know we need to take a break here. You started off by talking about how there are things floated. And so when you're reading a Pac-12 guy who's all of a sudden like, hey, there might be this chance – there's a good chance that he talked to his sources or that a source reached out to him, who's maybe the president of, Cal or something, or the AD at Washington State, and that's where that's coming from. And, some of it might just be like good old dogged hard reporting that is revealing some truth or some information, and there's some of it that, is just kind of propaganda or feelers being sent through various channels to kind of see what the feedback is.
Chip Brown, when the Big 12 fell apart the first time.
Yep.
So Chip was getting just hard-on nails information for 2 days. And then the 2 days after that, whoever was giving him his information, which I believe to be the highest person that could have given him that information, I don't know that for a fact, it's just what I think,
let me tell you something.
Started
at more than one school.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there were some leaks coming from Baylor to Chip. I mean, it wasn't just UT.
But people were throwing out stuff to Chip that was patently untrue to see what would happen when it got out there. Because they knew if they floated him true things
Texas
and he
to
was
the Pac-12.
and he was on it all the time, then when he got the stuff that wasn't true and he reported it. Now, you can't blame Chip for reporting it because all the stuff they told him for 2 or 3 days happened exactly as it did. Yeah. And then on the fourth day, they started, trying to use Chip to point the direction.
And then
it started
There's
to spin.
somebody that's been pretty good about this realignment discussion, the rumors, speculation. And some of it has been spot on. The problem is, can you always be right? And there's a difference. Can you always be right? If you report something and it's from somebody you is a valued source, or you and you've checked it and you report it, you can never then come up with something that a few of the people we mentioned have done, and next thing you know, you will always hang your hat on what was the original thing that made you famous, but you have to be right all the time. That's the difference between someone on social media, which people have their ins and outs, and then someone who has to actually to report it.
Put their real name
because
on
their
it.
name is on it. But I'm telling you, there's some great great Twitter feeds. When we come back, Baylor's Director of Athletics, Mack Rhoades, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, twice as much inventory built and some in transit. Some on the ground right now being put on the lot so you can look at the cars, trucks, and SUVs. Huge inventory at Alan Samuels right this minute. Expecting even more available on their lot. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. 2.9% financing on almost every new car. Ask the client manager to give you the details that you're looking for. I went on the lot 2 years ago. I'd been driving a Chevy Tahoe for 370,000 miles. It was finally dying. Finally got tired of fixing issues, maintenance issues. And I went over there, met AJ, who does an amazing job, walked me through the process. He didn't try to sell me the most expensive truck or SUV. I then all of a sudden he gave me, well, what about this one over here? And I said, this is it. Once I saw the price and saw the details and whatever else, and that's what I've been driving now for a couple of years. AJ wanted it to be a fit for me. Like when you recruit a player to play for a team, yeah, you want the high stars, but you also want what fits the team and culture you have. And right now, they continue to have what is an amazing summer event. 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. Special values up to $7,000 or get $1,500 bonus cash and 2.9% financing for 72 months. That's just one thing. They have the Wagoneer 2 and 3 Series spectacular SUVs. I've driven them. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Tell Ted Teague I said hi. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543. Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. What are some of the things you have coming up?
You know, we kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves. Probably 9 out of 10, every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhoades is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments Brokers, Tom Albers, Brad Wilson, Ben Erlinson, and Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
We are starting a new segment on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Every week we're going to have Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhoades joins us.
You're just too mean to him. I don't support this.
Oh my goodness, why do you go on vacation and create just havoc?
Thank you for letting me be on the show again. I wasn't sure if you'd let me on again, and I know we tried to get on, but you guys were booked. That's what I was told.
All right,
so.
You ready for us to fire away at you?
I am ready.
Is the Big 12 going to add any Pac-12 teams?
I think to coin a phrase you've heard before, we're open for business. I think everything's on the table. I think we're exploring our options. No different than I think what everybody else is doing. No different than what the SEC did last year, what the Big Ten just did recently. And so we love the 12. I think we've got a bright future, and we've got great value there. And we're starting to realize that in terms of conversations with media consultants, et cetera. But we're also looking at, is there opportunity to add even greater value? And you've got 2 conferences right now at 16. And so look, we're exploring, and certainly nothing's imminent at this point in time, and trying to do it obviously the right way, and this stuff's hard. I'll say this, I know how those schools feel in the Pac-12. We went through it last year, and the uncertainty is hard, and it's uncomfortable. Unfortunately, and there's a part of me that hopes that this statement isn't true, but this idea of us all supporting one another, and when I say we, the Power Fives supporting one another and wanting each of us to be viable, it just feels like that's probably very, very secondary right now. And if you don't act, you're going to get acted upon. And I think that right now the Big 12, we're in this process of trying to act rather than the opposite.
Right before you left for what was supposed to be a break, which I'm sure did not turn out to be that way, Brett Yormark was reported to be the new commissioner or the next commissioner of the Big 12. And I got the impression, I think all of us did, that you weren't so sure who he was, and then I know you got a landslide of information. I now know that you guys talk quite a bit because he told us that last week at Arlington. And I'm sure he talks to everybody else that needs to be, on the phone with him or text messages. What are your thoughts now, just in a short amount of time, of what you see from him?
Yeah, I would say, all positive. For whatever reasons, and I'm blessed. I think Baylor's blessed that been able to be in the foxhole with him over the last couple of weeks, and certainly I'm not the only person as you indicated, but I think what I appreciate most about Brett is he doesn't pretend to know what he doesn't know, and he's gonna listen, and he's gonna ask for help, and he's gonna seek advice, and have thoughtful conversation and dialogue, and be inclusive in terms of strategy, but also he's equipped to be a leader and to make tough decisions, and so I've been really impressed, and quite frankly, as hectic as it's been, and maybe not what I anticipated my last 2 weeks to be like. It's been enjoyable to be able to support and work alongside.
Mack, are you concerned that these decisions about conferences are being made without regard to what happens to the fans that get left out?
Yeah, Paul, it's a great question, and I'm going to answer it honestly. I think when you're in it and you're dealing with it, I'm not going to say that it's forgotten, but you're so I guess you're so entrenched in the moment, and so I think there's probably less focus. Now let me just take one step back. I think your own fan base. Certainly, you're thinking about your own fan base, but what about the fan bases of some of the schools that maybe do get left out, or or there's uncertainty. That's real, and it's a tough place to be. And I just candidly, I don't know that you're so into protecting yourself and trying to develop strategy and add value that sometimes we probably don't think about it as much as we should.
Mack, speaking of protecting yourself, I mean, this is, I guess at its very core a Baylor show, but has, over time become more of a national type of thing just because of all that's gone on in college football. But how do you feel about your number one focus in all this, Baylor athletics in this current environment? Yeah, Craig, the day doesn't go by, an hour doesn't go by, truthfully, that you don't think about, your own athletics program. And, I'm at peace. I think we're in really, really good shape. I had this conversation with somebody earlier this morning, and I was talking about autopilot in planes, and autopilot is great for planes. It's not great for athletic department growth and security, nor
nor conference growth in security. And so we've got to have our hands on the wheel at all times and continue to push and grow and get better and be uncomfortable. And so, I think we've done that within our department, and quite frankly, we're going to continue to do it. And quite frankly, we need to continue to do it. Sugar Bowl win, national championship, all of those things, they're great and should be celebrated. But those are done with and over with, and it's about what's in front of us, and we're going to have to continue to evolve and find ways to be better and continue to scratch and claw.
So, Mack, I know that we're going to get into some more questions about the future and what all that may hold and all that, but let's get to where I guess this technically started with Texas and Oklahoma, and if you really want to, you can go back even further than that, but what really has ramped this back up was USC and UCLA, and I don't think we've talked to you since all of that occurred. Nope. What were your thoughts when that story broke? Very similar to what you guys in the Big 12 had happened last year with OU and UT, but what were your thoughts on those LA schools making the move to the Big 10, and how much did that change maybe what everybody thought the present was at that time?
Yeah, I mean, obviously those are, similar similar to what happened with us. And so, obviously, I've got friends and colleagues in the Pac-12 that I have great respect for and positive relationships with. And I think first and foremost, I certainly thought of them and felt for them, because I'm in the position that I'm in, and, we went through this last year and it's, if not daily conversation, it's frequent conversation. I wasn't, necessarily, surprised. There were, rumblings about revenue share and, the Pac-12 used to have unequal revenue share. And I think, those were certainly two programs that received, maybe greater revenue than the others. And, then they went to equal revenue share. And again, just, some, I'm not going to say animosity, but there was some discomfort, and probably just, like within the Big 12, but so it didn't surprise me. And then, I think, Craig, you go right into the mode that, okay, here we go again, right? How much disruption will this lead to? And, you think about the domino effect with Oklahoma and Texas leaving. Well, then we added 4, and that created dominoes in other conferences. And so, I think this remains to be seen what type of dominoes happen from here. And, I think it's really hard to predict if any of those dominoes fall here within a short time, or, is it 6 to 12 months for it all to play out. And I think that's really, really hard to predict. I would tell you that I don't think it's over. And, I think there'll be some additional changes, but when that happens, I think, all of us we'd like to think we've got an idea of when that would happen, but we don't. And you got to be ready.
Mack, I don't know. Again, there's so much reporting, and some of it is people doing their jobs, and yet some of it is people throwing mud against the wall, hoping it sticks, and most of the time it doesn't. But there was a report that there was a possible merger or discussion of it, did not last very long. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that would even work if that was on the table, a Pac-12, Big 12 merger with so many different backgrounds, traditions, and whatever political and other type feelings?
Yeah, I think, I think there's certainly been those types of conversations. There's even been conversations about, hey, take the best of the ACC and take the best of the SEC or the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and, create your own conference, or, not a true merger between Big 12 and Pac-12, take the best of the Pac-12 and the best of the Big 12, and same thing, take the best of the ACC and the best of the Pac-12, all of those different conversations. And I do think they make for fascinating dialogue, but, when reality sets in and some of the legal barriers and parameters and different TV deals and timing of TV deals and grant of rights, all of those things, it becomes really complicated really, really quick. And look, I think, in a day and time where we're all, trying to add value and protect ourselves for the future, or, maybe just make sure that we are absolutely viable, for the future. You've got to run out all of those ground balls. And I think, that's what everybody is doing. And, some of those ground balls have been run out and some are still in the process of being run out. And I think that's where we're at. And, but those things, mergers of leagues and media mergers and scheduling alliances, and not saying that they can't happen and they won't happen, but those are things that are complicated to figure out for a lot of different reasons.
Mack, you were once at Arizona. That's kind of close to your heart. Do you know enough people there that helps during this time, if in fact you're allowed to have any discussions with them? Arizona is my alma mater, and I certainly have great affinity for that institution, and I know people are there, but these are business decisions and not necessarily relational decisions. I think it can help, but look, if there's any change to the future, whether it's the Pac-12 adding schools, us adding schools, it's going to be based on business decision and who adds value and how do you add rather than dilute. How much have you spent the last couple of weeks since the news of USC UCLA? How much have you spent learning more and more about media? And not that you didn't already, but the streaming and the analytics and the stats and all of that, dealing with consultants or media, whoever, trying to learn more about how the Big 12 can make more money.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've been blessed to be engaged in those conversations, and I do want to say something because I think it's really, really important. I've spent a lot of time, and you only have so much time, and so Baylor athletics, obviously, that's my priority, but so blessed to have a great executive team and staff that they can pick up in my absence, or not being able to spend as much time and we not skip a beat. And so I'm grateful to our entire staff, our coaches and our executive team. But I've absolutely have learned a lot, and felt like learned a lot last year going through that process, and learning a lot right now, and just grateful to be in a position where I can be supportive and help Brett, and again, can't reiterate enough. He's been fantastic, and I think people saw a little glimpse of that at the football media days. But he's been outstanding.
He said that to us. Not him, about himself, but he mentioned. So I asked him last week. He was on with Craig, and me in Arlington. And I said, do you know where the money is? And I know that sounds like maybe a simple question. And he got steely-eyed almost, but his answer, I know where the money is. All the way from anything you need media rights to all the way up to like bandwidth. He got pretty deep into that as well. Is that what you've learned from him?
Yeah, I think, if you look at, his wheelhouse, he's got great relationships, and I think he has a propensity to create and generate ideas and programming and concepts that generate revenue, create revenue. And I think he's got great strength when we think about sponsorships and I think the way we attack name, image, and likeness could be different. But I think that he eats, sleeps, drinks that stuff. And he's if you look at his track record prior to becoming commissioner, he's been extremely successful in that area. And I would anticipate and certainly predict that he will continue to be really, really successful. And look, the Big 12 conference, I think all of us, and I'm speaking on behalf of the presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors, we're looking forward to new ideas and innovation, and we're gonna have to do that to be relevant and maybe reinvent ourselves in certain ways.
Mack Rhoades, Baylor's Director of Athletics, with us, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Mack, do you see any way that right now ESPN and Fox are the networks that carry Big 12 athletics that I can think of, unless it's tournaments or bowls, whatever? Can you see in any way another network carrying the Big 12 starting in 2025?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when you think about the linear partners, when you think about ESPN and Fox, let me first say they've been great partners, and we've been blessed with their partnership. Be interesting to see the NBCs and the CBSs, now that CBS has only got one more year with the SEC and Time Warner Discovery, whether or not they get into the college space. Obviously, ESPN's got ESPN Plus, so the digital space there, but you also got Amazon and Apple, and I wouldn't be surprised for Netflix to get into this. And so, it's hard to predict what the possibilities will be in 2025. I think it's good that there'll be additional linear and media partners in the space. But I would say that despite some things that have been written, that there's really a healthy relationship between the Big 12 and our two current media partners, both ESPN and Fox. And I think that there's a great chance that could continue beyond 2025.
Mack, a question about, and I know it's so far off in what's going on now, but the 4 schools coming in, when they arrive next year, do you think that the other teams who are remaining, the 8 schools plus Texas and Oklahoma and their future, will everybody get less because of the incoming schools, or do you feel like that number is still going to go up as far as the annual distribution?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that's still a work in progress. And and again, not to deflect the question, but I certainly don't want to provide an answer that's inaccurate. And so I would just say we don't know yet. I think, how Texas and Oklahoma leave and those monies and some of the reserve monies, so I think there's this anticipation that, we will continue to be whole or maybe close to being whole, but quite frankly, I don't think we have that answer yet.
Earlier, you said nothing is imminent. What's your definition of imminent?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure if, Big 12 is going to remain at 12. And again, when I say 12, I'm talking about obviously beyond Texas and Oklahoma once they leave, or whether or not, we add and, go from 12 to 14 to 16 to whatever that number is. And I think that's still, a work in progress and exploration and look, there's a lot on the plate of Brett and the Big 12. I mean, certainly there's the conference membership piece, but it's all the other things too that he talked to you about in terms of generating revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things when he talks about being open for business, right away people go just to the conference membership piece, but it's really all of the above. And so, a lot of work to be done, and we'll see what that timeline looks like. And there's certain things and steps and processes, and look, I don't think I'm breaking any type of news, but I think one of the first things that has to happen is for the Big Ten to get their TV deal done. And we all know and hear and understand that Fox is going to be the major player, in that, but they're not going to be the only partner. And so who are the other partners? And so, those are all things that still need to be decided. And, it's Brett's job. It's our job, meaning the presidents and the athletic directors, to put the Big 12 in the very, very best position that we can for the future.
And that's my last thing. Do you feel as confident now as you felt that the Big 12, no matter what, the Big 12 will have the opportunity and a seat at the table to win championships, and no matter what sports at the highest level?
Amen. I really do believe that. And I think, for our Baylor family, I think Baylor's in a really, really good position. And I think when we think about intercollegiate athletics, the future, quote unquote, big time, Power 5, nationally relevant, however you want to, whatever description you want to use, right? I think the Big 12 is going to be right in the middle of that conversation.
Mack, thanks for your time. We've missed having you on, and I know you've had a lot on your plate, and to give us as much as you do when you can. Thank you very much, and good luck moving forward.
Great being with you. Missed you guys.
You
Talk
too.
soon.
Mack Rhoades, Mack B. Rhoades IV, Baylor Director of Athletics. And I've been wanting to ask that question for 2.5 weeks, but, and things have changed a little bit. But I think he answered that. It almost didn't even get the question out of my mouth.
I got to tell you, that was pretty jam-packed with goodies. But, man, the comedy side of me, I just so badly wanted to interject with, like, a volleyball question in the middle of all that. But what are your thoughts on the volleyball season coming up, Mack? Yeah, that was good stuff. And going to have to listen to that a couple more times to really wrap my head around everything that was said.
Basically, eat or get eaten.
Yeah.
That was the main message, though.
Yeah. And again, he did not say that there wasn't going to be something happening. He just said he didn't think anything imminent. And then when I asked him to explain imminent, Justin, all right, I didn't get a chance to read this in time. Can you ask him if Big 12 would let Texas, Oklahoma leave early for a reduced buyout and for Texas and Oklahoma to play games at the other 8 Big 12 schools? We've kind of discussed whoever they're going to play in the future, non-conference or whatever, but as far as letting them out early, we've been over that so many times. There is a process, and it appears as if they're pretty much locked in through 2025, and they understand it. The Big 12 understands it. Brett Yormark told us last week he does like to negotiate win-win things, and the only win-win for the Big 12 would be if somebody leaves early, everybody gets their cash.
Yeah, the one thing I think that has been put out there, and it's been by at least one of the respective schools that I've seen, I think is recently mentioned as last week perhaps, but I think Kirby Hocutt and Texas Tech, or maybe the president has made it known that they've kind of loosely agreed with Texas on a non-con series that could go for a few years in football after everything changes over. But outside of that, I don't know too much else about what the kind of plans are, and certainly with the exit fees and earlier exit and all that comes with that. I mean, that's been asked a lot, but nothing's really changed there. Yeah. It's all kind of just remained the same. And until OU and Texas decide that there's something Brett Yormark's offering them that's so enticing that it makes sense for all sides to get out early, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. And until they come out and perhaps say something that, tickles his fancy, then he's just going to stay pat with that contract. And so it's kind of stalemate. Would that be, the right word? It's kind of a stalemate in so many ways.
Sometimes a stalemate could be like,
but not
like
negative.
A union, but it's not. It's that right now it's just there. Yeah. And nothing's changed even since the day the Texas and Oklahoma story was broken by Brent Zerneman, because I think most people, including me, thought that they'd be gone by the end of 2022. They're not. They won't be gone by the end of 2023. We don't know the answer to that. And I think what's also happened is Texas and Oklahoma understand the rules. They are moving to the SEC, but they are understanding of what has to happen before they can. And that's part of the deal.
Well, big entities like Texas and Oklahoma and ESPN usually expect Plan A to work out because they have a bunch of money, but Plan A didn't work. And so we're in Plan B or C, which still involves them leaving, but Plan A didn't work, and they're there till 2025.
Brandon, go ahead, Craig.
No, I was going to start reading off some of these quotes. I didn't get to all of them, and he was obviously having to be a little bit careful with how he was probably phrasing some things and whatnot. But
I thought it was more open-minded and transparent a lot than I thought. Yeah.
I'm not complaining. I mean, I do think that there were times where he had to kind of be careful with what exactly he was saying. Because, I'm sitting here tweeting out things, and I'm definitely not the only one by the looks of it that was listening to that and tweeting out quotes from it, which is great. But, he said they got a healthy relationship with ESPN and Fox, despite what reports have stated, and that he could see them continuing on with them after 2025, which would mean negotiating a new deal with those two. On the media mergers, league alliances and mergers and scheduling and all of that, not saying they can't happen or won't happen, but those things are complicated to figure out for a lot of different reasons. But the main one that is getting a lot of play right now is certainly if you don't act, you're going to get acted upon. Right now, the Big 12, we're in this process of trying to act rather than the opposite. And I think that's the one that's going to get easily the most play and says the most as well.
Brandon Helwig, who covers UCF sports for his company, was out there with a couple of tweets from what Mack said as well. Thank you, Brandon, for giving us the credit for that, and others will as well, because that's what we do. And we appreciate Mack Rhoades and his time. We're going to break here. When we come back, Paul, Scott Drew?
No, one segment.
All right, short segment. We might even go back a little bit to what we just heard. Scott Drew, about 15 minutes or so away, had a chance to visit with him. He's on the road recruiting. His thoughts now looking back at the trip to Toronto, what he learned, and much more. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. In fact, you can see their logo behind, well, not now because the chat room, the schedule, that's fine, but it's on there, right? There's one of our great sponsors behind me as well, Ideal MRI. They have been with us. Dr. Kent Petty was with us and his business from day one, April 6th of 2020. The legacy sponsors that started our tour, that we now have been on this amazing journey. And the same thing with what you might need from what he can do for you. If you're a man and you've kind of started to have some things change in your body, and maybe the change could be your energy's not the same. It could be you've gained body fat. It could be that you're just not able to focus. and it could be your sex drive. How many times do you watch something now on television where there are some ED commercials about what you can do, what pills you can take, whatever? And some of it is to increase your testosterone level. That's what Dr. Petty can do. He can do that by, first of all, you contacted him, pettycliniclowt.com, top left-hand corner, email, phone number, tell him I sent you, and then he will set up, or his staff, for you to go get your blood work. He then gets the results, contacts you, and tells you if your testosterone levels are too low. Testosterone level, supposed to be, depending on who you are, 600, 700, 800. Yours might be 1,200, and that could be a little bit of an issue as well, but maybe it's in the 200 or 300s, and there's a reason why things aren't the way they were. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty's an amazing guy. Appreciate him. He can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be. PettyClinicLowT.com.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's summertime. There's picnics, reunions, cookouts, and so much to do. And Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco is your home for the butcher shop that can help you with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. They are spectacular at being able to deliver you whatever cut of steak you want. Bone-in ribeye, however thick you want it, that's great. They'll do it. Sirloin, T-bone, porterhouse, bacon-wrapped filet. And, of course, as I mentioned, they have pork, poultry, and seafood. Their Norwegian salmon is spectacular. Also, all of the sauces and seasonings you'll ever need, all the ingredients you'll ever need to make sure you have that perfect, flawless taste. So it's delicious whenever you take something off the grill. And a full-fledged bakery as well, with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. Up and down the aisle of Waco Custom Marketplace, you also have what you need, from knickknacks to snacks to more, at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. Baylor football earlier today. Trey Wilson from Centennial High School, just on the east side of Dallas, and Garland is Lakeview Centennial High School, committed to Baylor. He's an edge rusher, outside linebacker, defensive end type And some of the players that he had offers from were some big boy names.
A lot of the Pac-12, actually. USC, Utah, Arizona State, Washington, amongst those that were
Stanford.
And anytime you get that Stanford offer, you know that's not something they just hand out to people. That's not like Alabama or any other fill in the blank school that offers 100 guys, whatever. That's one that's calculated when they give you the Stanford offer. You have to have proven some things to get that Stanford offer. So a lot of the Pac-12, U of H, some HBC, I think Dion and Jackson State offered him. Big time pickup, and I think based on where you look, he's a 3-ish, 4-ish guy, but regardless, Dave Aranda and Moran Roberts and that whole crew with a nice sized and athletic edge rusher, they're gonna do some big things together, I'd imagine. So good pickup there with Trey Wilson.
All right, so that was earlier today. I saw where Iowa State got a commitment, I think from a pretty high level 3-star guy out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. Now think about what I just said. They're losing people in their own backyard. You want to know what's struggling with them? A lot of reasons. They're dysfunctional. But also, this is one of the best classes of talent in Nebraska, and they don't have a huge chunk of it, but some of the better years ever. And they're not keeping the Amon Greens or whoever else that might be a part of that. And that's another reason why they are struggling as well. Let's see here. Go ahead. So you. Okay.
Well, what are you signing up for?
No,
you have
it's stability with Matt Campbell and Iowa State. You know who they are, and you don't know who the coach might be next year for Nebraska.
Unfortunately, that also applies to Iowa State in some ways. But I know what you're saying there, and I'm not trying to get on the Matt Campbell rumor mill, but I do post Big 12 Media Days feel stronger that he's probably not long for Ames, and I don't mean that in any disrespectful way.
That's actually a compliment to him.
With Scott Frost, it's kind of it's clear he's on that seat that's very loose and very hot right at the moment, and it's only going to get hotter depending on how things go. And if they go the way they went last year, it's just a matter of will he even make it to the end of the season? You know what I mean? So not surprising that might be hurting their recruiting a little bit. That's part of the deal, and that's part of the risk they signed up for when they decided to give it another run back. Key year coming up for the Huskers. There's no doubt. But, you see them losing the likes of Lincoln High players to Iowa State. That's not good news in any way, shape, or form.
No, you're supposed to keep maybe not the top guy, but like if they have 3 guys, you should get 2 of them most of the time, and usually you do in your local area.
And when they were running college football outside of the redshirt program, the Amon Greens and names like that, they were in their backyard, Omaha, Lincoln. They didn't lose them.
Well,
they didn't lose them. They did not lose them to Iowa. They did not lose them to Ohio State. They didn't lose them to basically anybody.
Well, the biggest thing that swung for the great programs of the 90s to the now great programs of the 2010s and 2020s is, Nebraska, Miami, Florida State, those teams used to own the offensive and defensive lines. They don't anymore.
No, they don't.
Alabama, LSU, the SEC owns that, really.
Yeah.
Ohio State owns it. I mean, that's who is really
what's Dave Aranda trying to build.
Yeah, exactly. You own the fronts, you own the country. And right now, that was Nebraska had Amon Green and a million great fullbacks, which, not to knock those guys, but Corey Schlesinger probably isn't as good without the gigantic dudes in front of him knocking the salt out of people all day long. And so, many teams have won national championships with plenty mediocre skill talent because they've had I say mediocre, not A-plus skill talent because of their offensive line.
They were the dominant offensive line, and yes, there were always thoughts about how come they're so damn big and strong. From BU Bear, cheer up Smoky. Nebraska is a 13-point favorite against Northwestern in Dublin, not Ohio.
And they're in the Big Ten,
yeah.
So they have absolutely no worries about the future like so many other schools have right now.
And I want to respond to this then, Scott Drew. In Bo Stacker, I've seen this a lot. I get it. It does make sense, but it's not necessarily completely true. They lost their connection to Texas recruiting. When they were in the Big 8 before they became a part of the Big 12, they would come in and pick off 2 to 5 guys, 2 or 4 guys, and they were still doing that. And they still have Texas players on their roster. The problem is it's not the ones that help you become who they were, and they don't have as much time for them to develop. and get better and have time to marinate, so to speak.
I'll tell you what's hurt them more, and Bob Stoops did this to them in the Big 12, maybe early on more than they realized until they left, but California. Nebraska really owned California for a little while for schools in the middle of the country. They would go out to California and get players, and now maybe they have a foot in the door and that they're going to be playing more games in that state.
Yeah,
but they had it, and then –
No, I was going to add, California schools might help that avenue. I'm thinking more about that Mack Rhoades interview than Nebraska football.
Yeah, I know
you.
I didn't even get onto them only because it kind
of
relevant.
I get it.
Now, when we come back, Scott Drew, Baylor, last year got knocked out in the second round by North Carolina up in Fort Worth, and they have reloaded. And they went up to Toronto with the team without 3 guards who have been hurt and have had injuries the last over a year, on and off. Adam Flagler, L.J. Cryer, and also Langston Love. Jonathan Chama-Chachawa, he's out for quite some time. But they went up and competed in that tournament. Not everybody gets to do that, and so they like to be a part of those. Toronto, they went to Italy one year. They've been somewhere else in Canada one year, and they get to practice and play games. How much did he learn about his basketball team? Scott Drew, Baylor, next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store in Waco at 425 Lake Air Drive. I went by there Saturday. I played a round of golf Saturday, went by their location, called them, and I was 10 or 15 minutes away from the golf course, Bear Ridge, where I played. I said, I'd love to come by and pick up 4 bone-in ribeyes, and I want the big, thick 1/4 inch and a quarter or so bone-in ribeyes. Guy was so nice on the phone, took my order. I said, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Now, sometimes you might, it's going to take a while. He said, Mr. Smoak, your order will be ready when you get here. I said, I'm 15 minutes away. It'll be fine. When I walked in the door, 4 big, thick bone-in ribeyes were waiting for me at the butcher shop. Right now, some specials they have going on as well. Top sirloin steak at $5.75 a pound. Beef short ribs, $4.99 a pound. Bone-in pork chops, $2.25 a pound, and chicken thighs, $2.75 a pound. This is something they've really had a lot of success, and a lot of people love it. The bacon ends and pieces, $2.75 a pound, and the piggy sticks are $2.99 a pound. You want steak, you want beef, you want pork, poultry, and seafood, they have it. Seasonings and sauces and more, they have it. Cold beer and wine, they have it. And a pastry, every day something sweet that they'll bake, whether it's kolaches, fresh bread, or something else for your sweet tooth. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. This is a great time for your business.
Exactly. And one other thing we do that a lot of people don't know is we buy jewelry, heirloom pieces, gold, silver bars, gold bullion, watches, anything you may have that you want to, if you don't want to use it and remake something like I did in a state yesterday and I looked at 35 pieces, well, they're probably going to sell me back 30 because it's something they're not going to wear, nothing to use. So if you're looking to get a few bucks or to sell something or something you just don't wear anymore, I make my wife go through her jewelry box about every 6 to 8 months, and the things that she doesn't wear on a daily basis, this sounds horrible, but I take away from her and then I'll put in my estate counter, but then that gives me the chance to rebuy her something new moving forward. Instead of looking down 20 years down the road and you have 300 pieces of jewelry, it's something to refresh and make her buy something new along the way.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Flagler for three. Yes.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Cryer from the corner. And it rattles home. Wow. Gonna GO, baby.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. Baylor National Championship basketball coach Scott Drew with us, and appreciate your time. I know you're traveling left and right. We appreciate it. What did you learn about your team in Toronto?
First, that we like the weather in the summertime a little bit better. 78 degrees was nice, yeah. But I tell you what, our team was what we thought they were, and what I mean by that is it's a great group of guys. Everybody really got along. Everybody enjoyed spending time with each other. And then basketball-wise, this is a hard-working group, and they really play as a team, and we're undermanned up there, but they really competed hard and played against some great competition. And I knew competition would be good. I didn't know it would be that good. And what I mean by that is most teams had a majority of 23-year-olds and people that have been playing pro ball for 5 years and been on national teams for several years. And so they had experienced players and talented players that really did a great job making the tournament very competitive.
Can you imagine if you started the year in November and you hadn't had that, to where you could have guys who have not had a lot of minutes, who are in from other places, transfers, new players? I can't imagine. This has to be, just that alone has to be big.
Well, I think everyone knows when you play, the reason you only get a 4-2 or 1 out of 4 years is because it is a big advantage for those years that you go on one, because it just puts you so far ahead of other teams, not only in execution, practice time, but also just in team bonding and togetherness. And with us, especially if you have a veteran team, you only have 2 or 3 new guys. It obviously benefits you, but nowhere near when you have a half full of team of new guys. And nowadays, that's what you have more and more in college athletics you'll have 4 to 7 guys, 8 guys joining the team, and that's why an opportunity like this allows us to not only see what areas that the individuals need to work on and where we can spend the next couple of weeks trying to get guys better to fit our system and with what we want to do, but at the same time allows us to then know X and O wise, hey, we need to adjust or tweak or change some of these things for the personnel we have this year. So big advantage.
Did you ever look at LJ or Adam Langston and go, hey, go on in? Was that tempting? I know they.
Yeah, that's been tempting for over a year now. So
yeah, that's exactly right. That's you have had guys who can fill it up and score. Obviously, Lace Darius Dunn and at times others. But have you ever coached somebody that's the pure scorer like Keontae George?
It's too early to tell because again, we've had some great ones that did it for a whole year, and Keontae was very effective and efficient for the games he played up there. But I would say the one thing that Keontae does that is a little different than most of the guys we've had is he can score at all 3 levels. And a lot of times you've got guys that can really shoot it that first year. You might be able to get to the rim or maybe have a mid-range, but very few guys can score at all 3 levels and then be such a good facilitator and impact the game in other ways. I mean, Keontae has a chance to be a very good on-ball defender, a very good rebounder. Obviously, his facilitating has been something, and his ability to pass and read a ball screen is really something that even surpassed our knowledge going into this summer. So, really excited to work with him. And the best thing is, I think every coach will tell you, players that want to work hard, want to listen, want to get better, they're going to improve. And Keontae's one of those guys, and sometimes guys come in, they think they know it all or think they know what they need to work on, and they're not open to being coached. And Keontae's definitely a great teammate and someone who wants to be coached and improve.
Yeah, he was almost like he's a marked man because he's so highly rated. You've had others, but that it just seemed like, boy, they were in his grill, but that he's used to that. How many have you ever counted? And I know one year might change from another. You have to go all over the country. You're recruiting. That's part of the game. That's why you win, and you got to find the talent and the fit. How many miles do you travel, do you think, in an off season?
Well, I know I'm at, I think, 2.8 million on American, and when I was coming from Valpo, I lost all my United miles. So I think I've earned earned those while being here at Baylor, which is good. But that's I mean, at the end of the day, you got to put in the work to get great players. And our staff, we've always had guys that have really been willing to work and sacrifice family time and because of that, it's paid off. We've been able to not only bring in talented players, but most of all, people that represent the program in a way that everyone wants. So players we have to do.
Yeah, and that's the fit part of it. It's great to get Keontae George or some of the higher players, but how long does it take you? And I can't imagine it's just maybe watching one game, but who knows? How long does it take you or the staff to realize that somebody does fit what you have, the culture at Baylor?
Well, and that's where the good thing with the NCAA rules, they've allowed for more phone conversations and more text exchanges, and so you can learn a lot by watching a guy play as far as what skills and talents they bring to the court, but also just how they interact with their teammates, how they interact with the coaches, with the officials, how they interact with their parents after the game. I mean, you take all that in, and then the more time you spend with someone, the more you get to know them. And I think that research and background is so important. And that's where, I mean, we've had players that were ranked number 1 player in the country by some scouting services, and we've chosen not to recruit because we didn't think they were a fit. And that's hard to do because normally when everyone tells you this guy's a no-brainer, 5-star, can't-miss guy, but at the same time, it's not the number of stars, it's what they do in the jersey they wear.
How fast were you driving that car in Toronto that had David K. absolutely traumatized.
Yeah. Hey, David K can go too now. David's got some skills behind the wheel. I tell you, that was a bucket list item, and Coach Mahalter put that together for the guys, and an unbelievable experience because, as you know, most people don't have a Lamborghini and Ferrari, and I know, Smokey, you got a couple of them, but you know, besides you, it was a great team bonding experience, and to be able to do that is something I know our guys will remember, and those are the things that make trips. I mean, the competition's great, spending time together is great, but being able to do some things like that. Or things that really make trips like that great bonding-wise.
The only one in Texas that has a Lamborghini besides Bijan Robinson is me. So it's definitely. I saw where the schedule for the Las Vegas tournament came out, and you're going to end up playing Virginia. They obviously play a very methodical and precision-like style. Your thoughts about drawing them apparently early on in that tournament?
Well, I mean, that's a great thing about that tournament. I mean, you're whoever you play, you're national championship Final Four caliber teams. So it's two great games that will do nothing but help your team the rest of the season. And Tony Bennett, family friend, we've known him, dad, going back to Wisconsin, Green Bay, Valpo days. So a lot of respect for Coach Bennett and how they run their program. And you got two former national championship teams competing, and when you play against a Tony Bennett defense and a team, you have to win the game because they're definitely not going to give it to you, and you got to guard for the full shot clock, and you can't make mistakes because they'll take advantage of it. But you're a better team whenever you get done competing against teams like
Scott. I heard Dave Aranda. He said this to us last week at Big 12 Media Days in Arlington, that he has spent a lot of time watching Georgia. Obviously, they had the national championship defense, and of course, Dave had a great defense as well. But watching what Georgia does with their front 4 or 5 and how they can pressure the quarterback, do you spend time watching others and picking the brain of film of others constantly, or is that something that maybe the analysts do and then show you?
Yeah. No, that's the great thing about synergy nowadays. It's all there for you. You can study as much as you want. At the end of the day, everything has to fit your personnel and your style, because as I always say in coaching, there's a bunch of ways to get to 4. 3 + 1 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. 4 + 0 = 4. 6 - 2 = 4.
Yeah.
So what fits your system, your style? We're always trying to tweak and change, and the best way to improve is to take something someone's done that you know works and fits your system rather than trying to come up with stuff on your own. So we're always, every off season and during every year, trying to add. And that's one thing great about the Big 12. It's been the best conference in the country. So night in and night out, every team you're preparing for, you're studying, and you're able to adjust and pick up things from everybody you play.
That brings me to perhaps my last question or two, is that you hear a lot of this smoke about what's going to happen in college football with realignment and conferences and who survives or whatever. Basketball's got 3 times basically almost the teams that compete for a national championship. Has anybody that you have discussed about coming to play for Baylor brought up any uncertainty or concern about the future? And then is the answer what you just mentioned, that the Big 12 has been the best conference in basketball for nearly a decade?
Yeah, that's something that's never come up. Occasionally someone will send something, or you guys join in with the ACC, you join in with the Pac-12 or whatever. But the great thing is, since you've been the number one conference for so long, people know whoever we have or wherever we go, it's still, like right now, the last I checked with Ken Palm Analytics, this upcoming year, it's the largest separation gap they've had between first and second place conferences. And I mean, it'll just get better as we add teams. And again, it makes it long January and February nights for Big 12 coaches, because it's hard to get a lot of wins when you're competing against the best. But at the same time, everybody benefits because we get a lot of teams in the NCAA tournament, and the teams are battle tested and ready. And that's still one of my bucket lists, is I remember back in the day when the Big East had 3 teams in the Final Four, and I look forward to when the Big 12 has 3 teams in the Final Four.
Well, do you ever get any kind of feedback from Mack or anyone with some of whatever is going on behind the scenes? Do they even pick your brain about anything? Because, like, you hear some thoughts. It could be Pac-12, and there's Arizona, which would be amazing. Anything like that ever occur?
Yeah, Mack does a great job asking for our input when input's needed, and at the same time, if there's nothing we can add, he's not going to waste our time. But he does a great job keeping us up to date as much as needed, because again, things change daily, so you don't. He's got his job to do. President Livingstone has her job to do, and when they need our help or want to keep us up to date, they do a great job. At the same time, they're not wasting our time with things we can't control.
And that's what I say. The NCAA men's tournament with 350 whatever teams, everybody when they start the year, no matter who they are, what conference they're in, has a chance to get to the tournament, win a game, and who knows, have the dream of being Cinderella. And I hope college football doesn't lose that touch. I just feel like that's what makes, to me, March Madness what it is today.
And hopefully you're right with that. The good thing is, I think the Big 12 is in a much better position than it was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. So that's a great thing.
Scott, thank you very much. Safe travels. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate you. Thanks for all you do.
Scott Drew, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Make this a summer sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels on the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star. With special values up to $7,000 or get $1,500 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. This legendary, award-winning truck gives you that first-class feel. Allen Samuels in Waco, the place to shop for Ram trucks. First responders get $500 extra cash.
Come by. Let's be friends.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
John Machota of The Athletic joins us now, and just, a week out of Oxnard, California, and Cowboys training camp. And John, they didn't get Dalton Schultz done. He's going to play on the franchise tag. Do you think this is a 2-year franchise tag thing, or does that maybe depend on what Jake Ferguson does this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I could see it being a little bit of both. I don't know if they're 100% certain either way, but both will factor in. Jake Ferguson, Sean McCune will be another one. How far along are those 2 players to where can they get by with those 2 guys? Or is it one of those things where they do franchise Dalton for a second season? I think it'll be closer to about $13 million for that season. And so essentially, if that was the case, then you'd get him for 2 years at $24 million, so $12 million a year. So a little bit higher than I'm sure some Cowboys fans would want, but I think that's probably the going rate for where he's ranked amongst tight ends in the NFL right now. So I think it's going to be a wait and see. But if he puts up numbers like I think he will, which I think will be probably like they were this past year, second to only CeeDee Lamb on the team and in receptions and receiving yards, if that's the case, he's going to set himself up to make a lot of money in free agency and possibly be really mad next OTAs and minicamp if there's another franchise tag.
John, they entered training camp. I think they have $21 million under the cap, which means that they could go out and sign people if they need to. How much of that money do you think they're trying to maybe allot, to maybe front load some extensions that they signed this year? And is there a scenario in which you see them before the first week of the regular season when those contracts become guaranteed going out and signing a veteran?
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of both to answer the first part of your question. I think that some of it is that they potentially get a long-term deal done with somebody. Who knows? Maybe CeeDee Lamb. But I think it's more so to kind of keep some room around to make some moves during the season, depending on how the season goes. And I would not be surprised if they use some of that before week 1. It could be either at wide receiver. There's obviously some veteran wide receivers that aren't they're not exactly in the prime of their careers, but they're guys that can go out there and be a number 2 or number 3 receiver easily on this Cowboys roster. But I think they're going to kind of wait and see what do they have in Jalen Tolbert, what do they have in James Washington, and I wouldn't be surprised if they've talked to some of those receivers and maybe they want their number to come down a little bit, and maybe they're a veteran receiver that doesn't really want to do the whole training camp thing. It's like, yeah, why don't you give me a call about a week out from the season? That's a possibility. I also think that there's a possibility they add another type of pass rusher, like I think we had talked about earlier a few months ago. Anthony Barr is a name that still he's out there. Cowboys are interested at the right price. Adding him in here with George Edwards is a guy that's coaching the linebackers, helping out on defense. He worked with Anthony as a defensive coordinator in Minnesota with the Vikings. So there's certainly something that could be done there. And then the other one that I'm keeping an eye on, I haven't heard any rumblings about, but if we get out there to Oxnard and the offensive line just looks awful, I mean, they're going to have to do something there to add another piece, because as great as your defense might be, as great as you think Dak is going to be, or the running game or whatever, a lot of this stuff is going to be, it's going to be a problem if the offensive line is just terrible. So I wouldn't rule out a possibility of adding a veteran there somewhere. So I don't think this roster as of today is going to be the one that they're going into week 1 with.
So with Dalton Schultz, that you brought him up, he obviously is not like a guy that's going to beat people up as a blocker. He's a great receiver down. He's a good tight end, receiving tight end in the middle of the field. Can they make him more dangerous down the field? Can he become much more of a threat in any way to maybe widen, like for people to worry about him going down the seams deep?
I think he could. And the reason I say that is just because he deserves credit for the player he's become, because he's not the player right now that he was certainly right after they drafted him. And when I say that, that's also kind of a putting it out there to fans listening about, Jake Ferguson. If Jake Ferguson doesn't look great right away, I wouldn't all of a sudden just, cast him away like, well, this guy was a spare. What a waste to pick this would. Like, tight end is a tough position at the NFL level just because of how they've been used, high school, college, and so on. It's just not the same as the way the pro tight ends are. So I think they can with Dalton Schultz. I expect him to be a little bit better. He's, in the prime of his career, and he's improved in other areas of his game to get him where he's at. But I think too many people look at the number salary-wise and, like, where he's compared amongst other tight ends. Like, well, he's not, whoever, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, whatever, Kelsey. Right. But there's also a lot of guys that aren't Dalton Schultz either. Like, it's the tight end class is just not a deep group in the NFL. And so, yeah, I don't think Dalton Schultz is top 10. And you probably could argue with me that maybe he's not top, he's not top 5 for sure. You could argue with me he's not top 10. But he's probably somewhere between, 10 to 15 at the worst. And if that's the case at that position, there's not a lot of depth across the league. That player's going to get paid. And if it's not going to be by the Cowboys, it'll be by another team.
Look, not that fantasy football applies all that often in these discussions, but just ask anybody who plays fantasy football, if you don't draft one of those top 12 tight ends, how that position goes for you during the year. It's because a lot of offenses don't even feature that as a key position. It's just how it works. So he's good, John. I think you're right. He's absolutely good for what he is, and he's made himself into a very viable player. And if the Cowboys let him go, he'll make big money on the open market.
He is the version. He's not Jay Novacek. Don't get me wrong. But he is Dak Prescott's Jay Novacek. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, I think that's a good comparison. The other one that I've been made with him is with the Mavericks with Jalen Brunson, a guy that, fans are like, yeah, let's not break the bank for this guy. But now that he's gone, you're kind of like, well, what happened to the roster? What do we have left on this roster now without him? And it's like, so you're going to have to overpay probably to keep the guy. And that might be what ends up happening with Dalton Schultz, unless, like you mentioned earlier, if you get one of these things where a Sean McCune really steps up. I thought it was interesting that Sean McCune was one of the guys that was with Dak at the University of Miami a few weeks back working out. I mean, those were obviously the core guys that Dak had out there that he expects to be throwing to this season. So clearly he views Sean McCune in there. And then you throw in Ferguson. If he can show that he can handle it, then they're in a better spot. But, one of the other reasons they're here is because they expected to have Blake Jarwin. And because Blake Jarwin's no longer in the picture, not even in the NFL right now, that's why everything kind of got, in the position where they are right now. They might not franchise tag Dalton Schultz if Blake Jarwin never gets hurt. And they might have just moved in another direction. But because they are so thin at tight end in terms of having proven production in both blocking and passing, their hands forced. They had to do something to keep Dalton Schultz.
John, what do you think you mentioned the offensive line, what do you think the first crisis in Oxnard will be?
Well, the first crisis will be any type of injury that happens to anyone. And it necessarily might not be anything major, but look at how last year went, with the Dak shoulder thing where they had to shut him down for a couple of weeks. And I'm not saying with Dak, but could be a guy rolls his ankle or something. So that's always the first thing when you get to training camp. You're always just like, what kind of opportunity is going to open up for somebody else, because somebody who you thought was going to be running with the ones all camp twisted an ankle, turned a knee. They're going to be very cautious with anybody that has any of those type of injuries. So that's a possibility. But in terms of what's on the roster right now, if we're in a perfect world and everyone's healthy, there's just, to me, it's offensive line, and then it's just a big gap to whatever number 2 is. And number 2 is probably wide receiver, just because we don't know for sure what James Washington and Jalen Tolbert are. You could probably even throw in there at number 2 or 3 kicker, just because we don't know for sure what Jonathan Garibay is. There's obviously going to be a huge camp and preseason for him, but I just think both of those are still not even close to this offensive line. And it's probably even magnified here because of the fact that we've just been so used to the offensive line being one of the team's strengths. And now you're like, is it going to even be kind of middle of the pack? Or are they going to have a bad offensive line? There's just a lot of question marks there. That there's a lot that's got to be proven that we wouldn't be able to see in OTAs and minicamp. Now that the pads get to come on, you can kind of judge these guys a little bit more, kind of see where they're at, see who's committing penalties, see who's just getting, destroyed off the ball, seeing if Tyler Biotish is taking another step to, solidify that starting center spot. But there's just 4 huge question marks on the offensive line, which is basically the 4 spots other than Zach Martin. And I just think everything else is just far down the list compared to that.
John, thank you. It's here. You finally get to see bodies, and I know there's not too much that occurs, but it's training camp. It means go time and have fun and enjoy, and we'll have you on throughout camp and can't wait for the season. Thanks for your time.
No problem. I look forward to it.
John Machota, theathletic.com, NFL and Cowboys for us, and look forward to his. That's the place I miss to go. I miss going there. I miss going to Oxnard just because it's somewhat laid back. The weather's incredible, and of course the scenery is incredible as well. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 things the ACC needs to do to stay alive. And these are, I mean, again, this is, I say stay alive. To stay relevant, I think they're going to stay alive. They've got a grant of rights until midway through the century, it feels like. So, but these are 5 things I think they could do. Number 5, don't partner with the Pac-12. Just like I don't think it makes sense for the Big 12, I don't really think it makes sense for either of them to do it. I mean, it probably makes more sense for the Pac-12 because they get some scheduling, but they could have done this last year and didn't do it. and they said they were going to do it last year and didn't do it. It's not viable for a reason, and I feel like if they made some sort of conference alliance, they'd just be throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks. And for the most part, you wouldn't really get what you wanted out of it.
Yeah, I mean, they had the alliance, and then the Big Ten was the one in the middle that broke it up and got what they wanted in the long run. So those big brands keep on winning. Big 12 or Big Ten and the SEC. As far as they've now become the Super 2, while everybody else was playing alliance or feeling left out or whatever, they were just the two making the moves the entire time, planning it out on the chess. Everybody else playing checkers. Those two were playing chess. And yeah, now the ACC and Pac-12 have a far lesser alliance. I just keep going back to. Mack Rhoades just said it about an hour ago of, it's fun to play fantasy media rights and fantasy league booking and fantasy, just have the Pac-12 schools play the ACC. It's not that simple. It's really not that simple to just 2 and 2 equals 4. No, it's like more of there's division signs and there's multiplication and there's parentheses and there's all sorts of other stuff that goes into it. And my question is with this is like, what ultimately does it solve? Like, not for the next couple of years, but like 20 years from now. Is the ACC still around because they made this move? Or the Pac-12 still around because they made this move? Are they ultimately going to come together and be the big three in this equation? And where does that lead? I just don't know what this really solves because I just feel like it's very complicated from a media perspective. It's a lot of travel cross-country. And quite frankly, the matchups we want to see, you can knock those out in a couple of weekends because I don't really give a damn about Boston College versus Cal and anything. You know what I mean?
And to me, I think – doing a conference partnership is like going to the doctor, finding out that you have a tumor, and then just taking Advil. Like, no, you need to cut out the tumor.
No, it seems like a Band-Aid for a gash. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really stop the bleeding. It might slow it, but it doesn't stop it ultimately, and everybody's still going to be left as vulnerable as they were prior to this. I don't see how it really strengthens it ultimately and really changes much, if at all, unless there's some just ace in the hole that a network has for them if they were to do this. But outside of that, I don't see where it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. Number 4, renegotiate the grant of rights. This is probably near impossible, but it's possible if ESPN wants to do it and if Jim Phillips is correct in saying that everybody wants to help. He also said today, by the way, that he does not regret how things went down with the playoff last year. I mean, he doesn't maybe regret it yet, but I feel like he's gonna. Because
you wonder if there's backlash to him, towards him, because he was the one that kind of.
Well, yeah, he was the one who went out and cast the vote, there's still some things to work out. Yeah, work them out after you approve it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what do you mean, work out? Yeah, there's still some ways for the Big Ten and SEC to screw the rest of you. That's what there is.
I mean, that's just the thing is, like, at this point, if these other folks do not realize what they've been bamboozled by, I just don't know. Like, I mean, there's no more wake-up calls. I mean, there can't be any more wake-up calls, and by now it's probably too late in many cases for anybody to do anything about it. But, yeah, I mean, if ESPN's open to that, which I don't know, depending on what Twitter feed you read, they might be or they might not be. His source says that there might be something to that. The fact that ESPN, yes, has them locked in, but could, if they wanted to, get out of that earlier. What could they do if they got out of that earlier? Get those schools they really want and actually want on their television station more often. It can get them possibly earlier into places that are more beneficial for ESPN. So I could see where that would work for ESPN, but I don't know how much stock to put into, people are talking about specific windows and whatnot. I mean, how much do they need other teams and other broadcasts, and how much does that add up? Just having that inventory that you get from the others, not necessarily the big headliner brands, but, Duke basketball, let's just not pretend like that doesn't matter at all, or North Carolina basketball. I know football's driving the bus, but how do those other things play into what ESPN's vision is? So, yeah, that's a big wild card right there.
Yeah. Number 3, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but build some actual depth in the conference. And I'm not talking about Virginia winning a conference title, but going 10-2 a few times wouldn't be bad. Having your big dogs be good again wouldn't be bad. I'm not talking about winning national titles, but making ACC games infinitely more watchable than 2 5-5 teams.
Let's put it this way:
at the end of the year,
I'm not because you would never miss the Miami-Florida State game. Never. Mm-hmm. It was an absolute must-win. No matter if your favorite team was playing or not, you would never miss that game. Now, I sometimes don't even know when they're playing.
Now it's bad football in some cases.
Yeah.
I mean, like, not even good teams playing each other over the years. I mean, I know that Cristobal is getting that thing turned around, or at least hoping to, and, you know, Florida State's a bit of a 50-50 situation at the moment, but there's reasons for excitement. But, I mean, yeah, here recently it's just like, what are we getting? I mean, the reason part of that was exciting was, the bad blood and the proximity and all that. But it was like number 1 versus number 3. You know,
the winner was going to probably play for the national championship.
He's going to play for a title. And now, like, there's not even close to that happening now.
And since Miami's joined the conference, it's not been that at all.
No.
Miami's never even come close to winning the ACC, really, save for one time. So they've never won it. So it's a situation where they need UNC to be good consistently. Nobody has to be, like, I don't know if you can ever be what you were in the 90s again, but at least be where, you know, even in bad years, if LSU and Mississippi are playing a night game and they're both 7-5, I'm going to watch it. So make the 7-5 games more exciting. Increase the value of your brands.
Yeah.
Make better football decisions.
Or don't win a big game and then lose to a mid or lower level team in your conference.
Don't beat North Carolina and you lose to Syracuse.
Yeah.
You know, like those kind of things. All right, number 2, find a way to keep the big dogs happy. And that's probably the shortest term fix, but find a way to keep these programs happy. And UVA can maybe be in this too because they're a bigger school, but they've got to find a way to keep these people happy because these are your television ratings right here. These are the ones that are going to get most likely poached if there's an opportunity to poach them before 2036. So find a way to keep these guys happy, and I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that contract's, again, called it an albatross, and it is in so many ways. So I think that goes back to a couple of questions ago of can they renegotiate that grant of right or that, you know, that media rights contract with ESPN and somehow find a way to shorten it to make them happy or to fatten it up in the front end and then give them a quicker exit. But I don't know how you do that with the current dates that are installed. But then again, I don't know why you're just letting all these brands that others would most likely be happy to scoop up and put on pedestals, you're not just going to let them go because you let them go, or if you don't make them happy and they go, then you're the Pac-12 right now, or you're the Big 10 last year, or Big 12 last year. You're no different, quite frankly, where you're sitting there going, well, we got Duke basketball. And everybody tells you, like, well, who cares now? Because that's great as a compliment to the football stuff, but by itself, you know, are we going back to the Big East, basically?
To take those logos, North Carolina is not ranked very high when it comes to what we got from Tony earlier today about comparable viewers by channel, Big 12, Pac-12, Pac-10, ACC. Florida State's 1. This, again, is not including the Big 10 and SEC. And this compares all the different channels, the averages, the network's averages, and then there's a Z-score. Florida State 1, Clemson 5, Virginia Tech 7, who's not in there, Virginia 11, Georgia Tech 13, Syracuse 15, North Carolina's 33. But they have the upper echelon of these three conferences, the chunk at the top is ACC driven.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 1, somehow, some way, convince Notre Dame that it's their best overall option. And the only way I can think Notre Dame would buy this is because they make their own rules where they are. Being the really only viable major independent, now that BYU is going to the Big 12, they can make their own rules, and they can play for a national title. Unlike BYU, they can play for a national title when they go 11-1. Like, they could do all that. So the only way that you can maybe keep both of those things, that kind of control and also being in a conference, is if you join the ACC, which they are contractually somewhat obligated to do. Like, ACC gets right of first refusal, which I think ultimately may not be worth the paper it's printed on if the Big Ten gets involved. But if they can convince Notre Dame that you can come in here and run things because we're happy to have you, then that might be what changes the contract altogether. But again, Notre Dame doesn't have to be motivated to do anything because they make their own rules.
That's the thing, man. Everybody talking about Notre Dame is so much wishful thinking. Mm-hmm. It's so much like trying to convince yourself that, yeah, they do need to go to the Big Ten and lose all of their independence. You know? It's like you really sit and think, why? Why do they need to go anywhere? They can date whoever they want, whenever they want, however they want, and you're basically saying, no, you need to get married. You need to get married. It's not the hottest woman or man, but they're good. They'll keep you pretty happy. I mean, it's not going to be the greatest thing ever, but it's good enough. It's better than average. But meanwhile, you're sitting there with supermodels like Bruce Wayne, and you're being told, no, you need to settle down and not worry about all this other opportunity in front of you. I'm sorry, but I'd have a hard time agreeing to that.
Yeah, I think they're probably following the Derek Jeter plan.
Exactly.
They'll get married when they want to,
exactly.
Not because somebody tells them they should.
Yeah, not because somebody says, well, they better do it now or they'll never do it. Well, what does that do to a guy like me? It tells me, okay, well, then there's no ring coming if you're telling me it's an ultimatum all of a sudden. The ultimatum's going to be the thing that I absolutely do not adhere to. And so Notre Dame's going to hold out all this time to ultimately get their elbow bent into joining the ACC, because now they have to join a conference because all this is going on. I just have a hard time believing that. I feel like if they were going to, they would have done so by now, and there better be something more than just a little bit of money. And I know we're talking tens of millions potentially with what they get now versus what they potentially could get in the new Big Ten or whatever. But, I mean, they're free to do whatever they want. What's the price tag for freedom? I mean, because they're the only ones, that have it the way that they have it, and I just don't know that I'd be willing to give that up for a few million in the near future.
They won't until they're told that you could not compete for a national championship if you're not a part of a conference. And even then, there's not even automatic qualifiers, really, unless you're the best team in that conference, and that's even more or less independent. All right, thanks to Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, Garrett Ross, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, the chat room, all of you. What a day. And also the text line as well. If you did not hear our segment with Baylor's Mack Rhoades, it is up on Twitter. It will be up on the YouTube channel. It's in, I think, soon, even the Premium Insider in the forums at some point later on. Emery's working on that. Thank you, David Smoak. Good night, Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.